the tennis too, but wanted to make a few modifications to the ball to make it a bit more effective. Around this time, an American chemist had just created something called vulcanized rubber. Out of that, people started developing air-filled rubber balls, which were properly bouncy, but either red or grey in colour. These were manufactured in Melton Mowbray. That's right, the home of the pork pie. One problem, the balls kept on breaking on impacts with the racket. The call of new balls please seemingly coming over every other point. Step forward, on. But these were white or black, so how did they become yellow? Well, in 1967, the controller of BBC Two, one Sir David Attenborough, decided the corporation should show Wimbledon on colour TV. He got his wish and it was wide into people's homes across the country. The only sticking point, the white balls were nearly impossible to see on the screen. So the International Tennis Federation, sensing an opportunity, started developing a new ball that would be visible even without the need for 4K LED displays. Not that anyone had that in the late 60s. After rigorous testing, they came up with the colour optic yellow and decided every ball be coated in that colour from there on in. And there you have it. Tennis balls are yellow, all because Sir David Attenborough wanted to watch Wimbledon from the comfort of his own front room. You could say the ITF aced it.
This is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. I'm Natalie Sawyer, and with me is the former Chelsea and Republic of Ireland striker, Tony Cascarino.
Good morning.
Oh, England. The Lionesses did not get off to a dream start defending their Euros crown. There is work ahead then for Sarina Wiegman's side and the Lionesses. We'll move on. England's cricket team have lost the key wickets of Ben Duckett, Zach Crawley and Joe Root. Can they get anything against India on day 5 at Edgbaston?
Well, England have it all to do on day 5. Resuming 72 for 3. The target for victory is 608 runs. That is unlikely even by Bazball standards. Pope and Brook will resume this morning at 11 o'clock on 72 for 3. 536 runs to win for England, but the key number for India, 7 wickets for them to win this match and level the series.
And Sam Allard there will have live reports from this final day getting underway from 11. And the British and Irish Lions made it 3 out of 3 on Australian soil after a win yesterday against the Waratahs.
Offload to Mitchell. They feint right. Go left. Alex Mitchell with another feint and scores the try. Finn Smith, his Northampton and England teammate, would have had an absolute walk-in, but Mitchell holds on to the ball and the Lions have their 3rd try of the evening.
Yeah, it was a win, but some not impressed still. We'll have more on that later on in the show. Cass, how are you?
I'm good, Nat. Yeah. Good day. Yeah.
Good day yesterday.
Well, you weren't with me yesterday morning. Obviously, Max was with me.
Yes, you were.
Are you going to tell us about where you were yesterday? Or are you going to keep it secret?
Well, it was Friday night that I was co-hosting So Alex Ferguson has a golf day, as he does every year, to raise money for the charity that he set up in the name of his mum. So it's the Elizabeth Hardy Ferguson Charitable Trust. And I was co-hosting the dinner alongside former Man United striker Dion Dublin. And it was fabulous. It was really, really good. Raised a lot of money on the night. I'm sure throughout the day they would have done so with the golf and everything. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably thinking about 70,000, something like that, with the auction and everything else. And you had Sam Allardyce, Tony Pulis there, Michael Carrick, John O'Shea, David May, Clayton Blackmore. I'm trying to think who else. David Gill was there. Mickey Thomas was on my table, as well as Sir Brian Flynn. You know, it was really, really lovely. And do you know what was really impressive? When you think about Sir Alex Ferguson, who's 83? Yeah. His memory is fantastic. Yeah. We had a little Q&A where it was Sir Alex and Sam Allardyce and Dion. And I'm asking the questions and we bring up Dion's debut. Like that. He knew. Yeah, it was Southampton Monday night. I remember. Southampton away. And I'm thinking, crikey, I don't remember things last week. He's remembering decades ago. Sharp as anything. And he looked really well.
Oh, that's good. Well, he's had some serious health issues, hasn't he?
He has. And I know he's got some great people that are looking out for him. So during the golf day, they sort of said to him, why don't you go and have a little kip? Have a little rest. So he did. He went and had a little rest. And they said, honestly, once he's had a little nap, and I'm all for a nap, he's recharged and he's good to go. And he was brilliant.
So did you get the opportunity to ask him, well, it might have been a little bit awkward questions on Manchester United season, or was it all quite low-key?
It wasn't. We didn't really go into much detail on Manchester United. There was more of conversations in general about where the direction the Premier League is going. Yeah. Like, for example, we mentioned it before, the Americanisation of substitutes being interviewed next season once they've come off the pitch, and dressing room cameras, etc., which... I can't
believe he would be.
Well, him and Sam were both very much like, nope, that's not for us. And Sir Alex is worried about, could we end up not having a relegation and promotion and all these sorts of things, which, again, we discussed the football pyramid and how that would be ridiculous, and we need to ensure that we still have that. He did mention the Bilbao final, but was just like, it was a terrible game, as he called it.
Well, it was for, even, I know Manchester United lost, but the fact of how poor they were.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was brilliant. But we didn't go into massive details on Manchester United.
So, okay, after you've asked all the questions, did you get sat next to somebody you end up chatting to? Because all of these dinners, you end up sitting at
my table, I was absolutely blessed with. I'm sat next to Dion. I've got David Gill on my left, Sam Allardyce, Tony Pulis, Michael Carrick, John O'Shea, Mickey Thomas, Brian Flynn. So it was a great table. Lots of fun, as you can imagine. And interestingly, Tony Pulis, before we move on, he's obviously, we all know what he's done in management, but he's actually got involved in a lot of research into what happens with academy players, how many of them go on to make a career. I think he said something like 95% don't make it, essentially. And his thing that he wants to get into is, what can we do to help these players? Not necessarily to make a career, but to ensure that if football doesn't work out for them, where they go next. And that's what he really wants to kind of get behind. And I found that really fascinating, just chatting to him about it. And he's really involved in a lot of research.
Well, he's been a manager for a hell of a long time, hasn't he? And, even you go back to his Gillingham days when Tony was taking them and done very well with Gillingham. The famous Man City game that he lost, he was the manager at Wembley that particular day. So he's seen pain, he's seen sort of success in the way what he did with Stoke. And it's a massive achievement to get to that around the 1,000-game mark, which Tony Pulis must have been around, mustn't he?
You'd imagine so.
He'd have been around that mark. Sounds like good fun.
It was really good fun. And I'll tell you who else was there celebrity-wise. James Nesbitt. Massive Manchester United fan, and he was there enjoying himself, having a sing-song. When the swing act came on afterwards to do all the classics, at one point you're like, hang on, we introduced someone else, but there's Jimmy Nesbitt singing, and he was loving life. So that was good fun as well. So yeah, pleased to be a part of that, pleased to help raise a lot of money for, as I say, the Elizabeth Hardy Ferguson Charitable Trust, and that goes to a lot of different things around the country in terms of, the armed forces and hospices and things. So it does a lot of great work. Okay, there's lots for us to get through on today's show, as you can imagine. Let's start very quickly, shall we, with what happened yesterday as the Lionesses' defence of their Euro title started off on the wrong foot as they lost 2-1 to France. Goals from Marie-Antoinette Coutoto and Sandy Baltimore put France 2-0 up before half-time. There was a late charge that saw Kira Walsh score for the Lionesses, but it wasn't enough to make a comeback. And England, as a result of the other fixtures, mean that they're third in Group D, yet to get off the mark. So a huge game coming up on Wednesday when they take on the Netherlands, which must be a must-win. This is what Serena Wiegman made of it all.
I think we caused ourselves a bit of problems. We know what their strengths are, and we played too many short passes, and where they could put pressure on, and then when we would get out, then we were a bit too sloppy on the ball, and especially when it's on your own half, they become really dangerous, and we had to get that right and do better. We did have moments in the second half. We couldn't harm them that much, and I think when we scored the corner, that helped us, and we tried to force a goal, and I think we were really close, but we didn't get it across the line.
About 15 minutes into the game, England looked as though they'd taken the lead from Alessia Russo, but in the end, VAR got involved and it was an offside, so that was ruled out. And after that, it felt like France just woke up after quite a dominant start from England, but it took something like that for France to suddenly go, oh, we're in a game here. We got up our game, and they did, and they were brilliant, France.
They totally outclassed England.
Yeah.
You know, if you take, after you said that, the initial start of the game, I felt sorry for Jess Carter at left back.
Tough night.
My namesake, Cascarino, was a bit of a handful.
We still need to check the heritage of this one because, she was fantastic.
But I felt sorry for Jess Carter because, you know, she's not a natural left back.
No.
And you could tell. And sometimes you get players who come up against a nemesis who is going to cause you problems. And as a coach, you have to identify that really quickly because Serena Weigmann made 3 changes in less than an hour. It was clear that she knew her team couldn't match up to France, who were... Their passing, their movement was, brilliant. It's way better than England's.
They were strong.
Yeah, and they got some quick pace players in their team, and England just didn't look European champions. They looked like a shadow of that side. Now it's the opening game, and we've seen this many times in tournaments. The opening game can be very misleading because you can look at, Argentina in Qatar lose to Saudi Arabia. You've seen that all these sort of things happen. That a team can rebound from that.
Yeah.
But England, I think there will be a lot of concerns the way England played yesterday because they had no real idea or identity of how they're going to take on France, stop France, and cause them problems. By the end, it was so comfortable, even though they got back to 2-1. It was a comfortable victory for France.
Oh, very much so. And like you say, it was only right at the end that once Kira Walsh has scored that goal in the 88th minute, England came alive and they put pressure on France, which is inevitable when you score a goal and you know you're still in the game, you're going to suddenly go for it. But you felt like, where was all of that earlier on in the game? The amount of misplaced passes or the amount of times they gave the ball away, England, was really, really poor performance.
Now, if you've got a centre forward like Rousseau, who's got goals at club level and been a real player and a danger and has had a really good campaign this year, and then you find her on the fringe of a game and you can't get her involved and you can't, like you said earlier, a goal disallowed, but not enough. Needs way better service. You got players who can make a difference. And that didn't happen.
Well, a lot of the experienced players didn't turn up in that game.
Yeah.
But like you say, they can still get through this group and they can still make it through to the knockout stages. Look, not that long ago, England's under-21s didn't have the best group campaign. No. 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. So, and then what did they do? They went on and won it. Yeah. So it is possible that
the
things
opening
can change.
Game I've been part of a few in tournaments where it can define your tournament, but also don't get beat yourself up too much. If you don't, you've still got a way out. You can still go and get a result against the Netherlands, and you've got Wales to play. You've still got an opportunity. You're not out of it, but just by the first game. You were outclassed by a way better French team on the day.
Absolutely. It's the Netherlands next then for the Lionesses. That game taking place on Wednesday. It will be live on talkSPORT with Adrian Dunn, Joe Shannon and former England striker Tash Dowie involved in that one. And you mentioned Wales. They got off to a losing start in their first ever major tournament. They lost 3-0 to the Netherlands in the same group. And they are bottom, as you can imagine. Netherlands top on goal difference. It's a tough group. It's without a doubt a tough group. And there were some people afterwards I saw talking about England might not even make it out of this group. That's how difficult it is. But as I say, next game for the Lionesses is on Wednesday, and you can find out how they fare with us live on talkSPORT. Lots to come in what is a busy show here on the Weekend Sports Breakfast.
plays that villain role very well now. It's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
This is the weekend sports breakfast. It is the former Aston Villa striker Tony Cascarino who is alongside me, Natalie Sawyer. And on Thursday morning, the Liverpool forward Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva sadly passed away. Throughout the last couple of days, the whole footballing world has come together to mourn.
And Diogo Jota puts them in front. It's the first goal of the Arne Slot era.
It was a great thing. He was our number 20 and we won our 20th league title this year.
He's the lad from Portugal, better than Figo, don't you know? I don't have the words to sort of explain the chasm that will be left by this.
Everyone knows what it's like to lose someone. It feels like we've lost one of our own.
Someone I've had the opportunity of meeting twice. He was so humble.
He was one of the greatest players that I've seen play for Wolves.
Surely now Wolverhampton Wanderers are going through to the semi-final. A counter-attacking goal from Diogo Jota.
Without a doubt, that's my greatest memory, and he was the one who gave me that memory.
We've been through a lot as a city, and you know we gather ourselves, but you can't prepare for things like this, can you?
He was the kind of kid that you would like to have around you, you know.
Truly gutted, but what he did for Wolves fans will always remember that.
You know, there'll come a time when Liverpool return to Anfield and the fans sing "You'll Never Walk Alone," and they will sing it for him.
We knew him as a footballer, and as a footballer he was a fantastic one. What we knew of him as a man, he was a family man.
You'll never walk alone. You're always in our hearts. Never forget you. Never forget.
So yesterday in Portugal, Diogo Jota and Andre Silva were laid to rest. Jota's wife and family were joined by members of the Liverpool squad, past and present, manager Arne Slot, as well as his teammates from the Portuguese national team, manager Roberto Martinez, and many from the Portuguese Football Association. A church bell tolled and crowds applauded as the brothers' coffins were carried into the church, followed by the mourners, some with their arms around each other. After the funeral service, the coffins were then carried to the cemetery next to the church, where they were laid to rest side by side. This week, Andy Goldstein read the statement released by Liverpool manager Arne Slot, who extended his deep condolences.
He says, what to say? What can anyone say at a time like this when the shock and the pain is so incredibly raw? I wish I had the words, but I know I do not. All I have are feelings that I know so many people will share about a person and a player we love dearly and a family we care so much about. My first thoughts are not those of a football manager. They are of a father, a son, a brother and an uncle, and they belong to the family of Diogo and Andre Silva, who have experienced such an unimaginable loss. In Slot's statement, he goes on to talk about Jota's playing style and his incredible work rate. It continues, when I first came to the club, one of the first songs I got to know was the one that our fans sing for Diogo. I had not worked with him previously, but I knew straight away that if the Liverpool supporters, who have seen so many great players over the years, had such a unique chant for Diogo, he must have special qualities. Slot finishes off by saying, my condolences go to Diogo's wife, their 3 beautiful children, and of course the parents of Diogo and Andre Silva. When the time is right, we'll celebrate Diogo Jota. We will remember his goals and we will sing his song. For the time being, we will remember him as a unique human being and mourn his losses. He will never be forgotten. His name is Diogo.
I mean, that is a lovely statement. Oh, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, I never met him. Well, I did. You know, I did. I would have done, because I've done a few events at Liverpool. So I've been very lucky in that sense. And I do actually remember a picture. This was when Roberto Firmino left. And he had a big leaving do. And there was a big picture on the pitch with all the players, all the staff, all the family members. And there is Diogo Jota with his wife, or at the time, obviously, girlfriend. And I was thinking, gosh, to think I was there and how happy they all were and what a lovely occasion it was. And you now fast forward to what we've seen. And as I've got older, I've become so much more aware of mortality and being a mum as well. You just have such empathy for anybody that goes through such awful, awful times. And to imagine what his family are going through, to one with his wife and the young children, but also his parents who've lost 2 sons. It's just unimaginable what they have gone through. And that statement from Arne Slot is absolutely beautiful. And I have to read another one out because, again, this one, I read it yesterday when I was coming home and I was in the car crying because it was just beautiful. And it's from Ruben Neves, who pretty much is his best mate. And it's been translated into English, so hopefully it translates perfectly. But this is what it said. He said, "Bug, wherever you are, I know you will read this. We were never this lame, and I may now regret it a little. But you know what you mean to me as much as I know what I am to you. More than a friendship, we're family. And we won't stop it just because now you decided to sign a contract a little further away from us. When I go to the selection, which is with the Portugal national team, you'll still be next to me at the dinner table, on the bus, on the plane. You'll always be there with me as always. Let's keep laughing, making plans, sharing our life with each other. I'm going to make sure you're always present, and I'll make sure that your loved ones never lack anything while you're there, far away, but thinking of us, waiting for us. Life has brought us together, and now it can't tear us apart. We've achieved some great things together. We still have a lot to go, and I know we can. From today on, you will enter the field with me, and we will follow our path together on the stage where we met. Diogo, you are my favourite lemonade." And then he finishes it with "love you." I mean, I read that, and it just brought so many tears because it just, affects so many. And you think, Ruben Neves obviously was playing out in the Club World Cup and his Al Hilal side gets knocked out. And obviously the first thing, he's on the plane and he arrives the next morning for the funeral, part of the pallbearers as well for Diogo Jota's coffin.
Nothing else matters. No. He's got to get on that plane.
No, and João Cancelo was alongside him as well, once again, part of the same team. And it was just, it's just devastating, isn't it?
I know now. There's people who listen to this radio, whether it's via being in a car or being at home or whatever, who have lost people that are very close to them, family members. It's just heartbreaking. And I lost a friend a couple of years ago, and I remember thinking, I'll never see him again. And that, I didn't think I would miss him. I say that as miss him much as I do. But you realise that how strong that relationship was. So when it's your own children, you've got Sawyer, I've got 7 children, and I sort of think, what would I be like? What would my missus be like if we had lost like that experience, gone through that? And you can imagine it, but I think it's nearly impossible to relive it because it would be sleeping, just thinking in your bad moments of and missing someone so much. And I think, people pass away. We lost George Baldock. I mentioned it last year that Sheffield United, and I remember talking to Chrissy Wilder, and I mentioned this yesterday on the show about the way that, Chrissy Wilder had to handle the situation because also he was a very close, and he was a player for him for maybe 8 or 9 years. And then you've had this with Diogo Jota. And it's incredible, the reaction, because I think it just brings everybody to the table. And it's not just about Diogo, it's about loss and how we experience. And because it's so sudden, I phoned you Thursday morning that I'd heard this and you're walking the dog. And you were literally in bits. And then Alison Rudd, who works for the Times, messaged, and Alison was, you could tell, heartbroken. She's a Liverpool fan, but that idea of loss is just so hard to explain and understand how it happens that suddenly someone is gone in an instant.
Yeah, and it's that thing of, car accidents happen all the time.
Yeah.
And yet, I suppose, and sadly there will be people listening and people that will have listened throughout that will understand they've lost a loved one through a car accident. And I've been very fortunate that I haven't, and I touch wood saying that I won't ever experience something like that. But it kind of brought the reality of, crikey, life is so precious, and it can, as you say, be gone in an instant, in an incident that happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and because it's someone that, again, most of us don't know, but seems so loved by all the players and obviously all the teams that he's played for, it just makes it's just utterly, utterly devastating. And like you've heard plenty of times, I'm sure, throughout the last few days, you know, everyone's extended their love to everyone that knew Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva as well. And it's, you know, we wait to see what will happen with football and in the sense of how they will continue to remember him. But I have read reports that Liverpool have said that they're going to continue to pay his contract up for his family.
Well, do you know when it's really weird you said that, Nat, because yesterday I was thinking about the consequences, because then you obviously the loss has happened, then you think of the family and you think, how's she going to be with the children, and you know what happens with, okay, he would have earned a lot of money up till now, but you then start to think, I hope they're okay, you know, because what will happen? And you know, because people said to me, like, what would, you know, would he be insured? I said, well, sometimes the clubs take their own insurance, and there's private insurance that players can take as an option. It's not a guarantee that he's got a private insurance.
Especially when you're that young.
Exactly. You don't even consider it.
No.
You know, so a lot of people wouldn't even consider it. Why would you? So there was all that side, and that's that's a lovely thing to hear, that there's no concerns for a woman that's been left with 3 children and her husband's gone and is not in a place to think about things like that.
Exactly.
You know, of moving forward. She'll have to, but it's so, we're so fresh on this, aren't we? It's just so, it's so raw.
I know.
And look, these are things that you end up talking about, and it's just very, very sad. But like you said, we've chatted about Nat, this happens all the time to people, and this is what people have to deal with.
Yeah,
but so much empathy as well, which is lovely.
Absolutely.
You know, the tributes have been extraordinary.
Yeah,
for him and his brother.
Absolutely, and some of the videos you've seen of him talking about his career and how he got to where he got to, and you know, there's just he just seemed like a really grounded individual who understood the sacrifices his parents made. You know, he talked about how they paid for him to ensure that he had this footballing path to go down. And, you know, those, again, are the stories you now hear about that we perhaps weren't as aware. Maybe we didn't see these interviews previously. But he just seemed like a great, great man. Yeah. And it's such sadness.
Do you know, Friday night, that coming in, and when I'd heard Oasis had played the song and put his shirt number out, I thought,
Live Forever,
to me,
beautiful.
That's absolutely full-on credit. Absolute kudos to them, because they would have had to okayed it and, you know, gone through. But to think of it and do it and say, you know, we're putting this shirt up. And this brings everybody together in football. I know there's rivalry and it can get tribal, but it was a real moment of, hey, we're all together in all this. This is a sad moment.
But it's also a moment that shocked everybody. Yeah. Hence what this whole outpouring of love that we have seen from everyone, like I say, Liverpool fans, Wolves fans, Portuguese fans, you know, and it's not just those, as you say, it's just the whole wider community. So as I say, I found it incredibly, incredibly hard, and I didn't even know him. So I can only just send our love, like we say, to his family, and to obviously with his brother as well. And very quickly, you obviously know that he changed his name. He was Diogo Silva, but decided to be Jota because there were so many Diogos and so many Silvas. So he was like, well, I needed to be different. And that's where Jota came from, which is fabulous as well. Oh, anyhow, I appreciate you listening into that, because I haven't had my chance to say anything. And crikey, honestly, the more I talk about it, the more I get upset about it. So we're going to move on, and we're going to bring you a little bit more from Wimbledon, obviously, that is taking place this week and next. And you'll have plenty more with us. We're with you until 10 here on the Weekend Sports Breakfast. Morning, this is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. We're live on your radio, YouTube and smart TV as well. It is a man who was given the freedom of the French town of Nancy, Tony Cascarino, who is alongside me, Natalie Sawyer. And as I said before, we're with you until 10. The latest episode of Wimbledon Unfiltered with Nick Kyrgios is now available on the talkSPORT YouTube channel. In this edition, he reacts to Jack Draper's shock early exit from the competition.
Top 5 in the world, and he's competing for Grand Slams, coming off a semi-final at US Open last year. Yeah, but Marin Cilic is a danger. He's a floater. He's always a dark horse, and people forget he's a Grand Slam champion. He's one of those guys that actually had a breakthrough when the four of the greatest of all time were playing. But Marin Cilic, I think he really remembered what he could do on a tennis court, and on grass he's dangerous. He's one of the best servers in the world still. Incredible backhand. But Draper just looked a bit out of sorts, came out a bit flat. Obviously 2-0 down. It's never easy to come back, but again, this Wimbledon's been so strange. So many upsets, so many seeds falling. Looks like the draw's opening up for Sinner and Alcaraz.
Yeah, defeat there.
I do laugh when I hear Nick Kyrgios because he's really good.
Oh, he's very good. Of course he is. Yeah,
on the court, he can be a complete fruitcake, can't he? He can be nuts. He's just, but he's really good.
But did you hear why he said he has to be?
Yeah, I listened to him. Yeah, because he felt he couldn't beat them.
Couldn't beat them on the court as such, so he had to try and beat them with his antics to try and put them off. Didn't obviously work as often as he'd like, but yeah, I mean, he's been great. He's been fascinating to listen to.
Yeah, no, he was part of an incredible era of tennis.
He's not retired, you know.
No. Sorry?
He's not retired.
I know, but I meant it as in, look, he's not going to be a winner of a major now, is he? And
unlikely.
And he's played in an era where there's been so much dominance by four particular players. So, kudos to him.
Absolutely, yeah. Jack Draper then seeded fourth for this year's Wimbledon, knocked out in the second round to Marin Cilic. And he himself, Draper, has spoken about just can't get it right at Wimbledon on grass as such, although I think he did win in Stuttgart, but lots for him to consider, I'm sure.
He's only 22.
Well, yeah, and also you've got to remember the grass court swing is so short. You know, you've come from the slightly slower surface of clay, then you've got to change completely to the fast, harder surface, if you like, with grass, and it only happens for such a short space of time that it's hard for a lot of people to make that switch. So, yeah, as you say, he's only 22 and he's having a fantastic
plenty of time. He's had a great year.
Yeah, and people are saying big things still to come from him. For your daily roundup of each day from the All England Club, tune into Wimbledon Unfiltered with Nick Kyrgios as the 7-time ATP title winner joins Gordon Smart for a look at all the news from the day and is joined by some very special guests. That's available each weeknight, 9:30 on YouTube and CTV. What's that? Connected TV. I'm just being told thank you. I had no idea. I'm not down with the kids.
No, am I?
I wouldn't have known that. Okay, let's move on, shall we? Oh, and by the way, Tony Pulis, you mentioned 1,000 games, or we weren't quite sure. Andy from Falkirk has been in touch to tell us he racked up an astonishing 1,137 matches.
Yeah, I knew he was part of the 1,000 club.
Yeah,
I just didn't know the total amount, but fair play.
Yeah, very good. Right, let's talk about one of your former clubs, Chelsea, shall we, Cass?
Yeah.
They've been very busy this summer, as we're all aware, and with it being involved in the Club World Cup as well, they could very well reach the final. Everything going well, they hope, as they take on Fluminense in the semi-finals. They've made signings such as Liam Delap, João Pedro, and more recently Jamie Gittins from Borussia Dortmund for around £50 million. So what should the expectations be going into this new season? Before you give us your answer, as always, Rory Jennings, he's always vocal. He had his say on the Saturday session on his club, and he spoke in particular on Enzo Maresca.
What I am saying, however, is that we got quite lucky at the end of the season. We got very lucky, in fact, to make it into the top four spots. Top four.
Why did you say lucky?
Well, if you think about the form that we displayed over Christmas, like we lost to Ipswich. We then drew with Ipswich at home. Like we were dropping points left, right and centre. We were really struggling, desperately struggling. And Maresca didn't really have an answer. Like earlier in this show, you touched on the form of Cole Palmer when he went slightly off the boil. That coincided totally with Chelsea's collapse. And it felt like we were totally out of the title race. The reason why we ended up finishing in the top four and ultimately doing it at Cantor was as much down to Nottingham Forest capitulation. Like Nottingham Forest dropping points from a winning position against Leicester City, who were relegated already.
Losing to Brentford at home.
Losing to Brentford at home. Like, that had as much to do with our success as anything that we did for ourselves.
I mean, it is a fair point in the sense of they benefited from Forest's drop in form towards the end of the season. But what do you think? Is he right in what he's saying about Enzo Maresca not having an idea of what he needs to do if things aren't going well? Kind of surmising there what you said.
Well, I said yesterday, Nat, that I've watched Chelsea a lot, and I've been impressed with them as a side. They finished 3 points in front of Newcastle, and they were only 5, I think, away from Arsenal, who came second, and a couple away from City. So City didn't have a particularly good season. Obviously, Liverpool won it quite comfortably in the end, but I think there's a lot of hope, and I think Chelsea are well placed. And the question is, what will Chelsea season be like? In trying to look forward and trying to second guess what Chelsea will be next year. I think they'll be close to challenging. I do. I feel.
What makes you think that then?
I think they're nearly complete. If you said to me, I look at their forward line and I just think, great. Just, lots of different options, and there might be one more still to come in. Midfield, if you go through, even lots of Lavia, Caicedo, Fernandes, there's good players there. Cole Palmer, top player. Neto. Neto's really dangerous. I feel like Neto's got to the level he was at Wolves now. I think he's had moments as a player, and he's if he avoids injury, Neto could easily be a contender for player of the season. He's one of them type of players. He's got a lot about him, Neto. At his very best, and Wolves fans know this, Neto's a real danger for any team he's playing against. So I think there's good things. How will Delap do? If he comes in, hits the ground running, which I'm not expecting, but I think him vying for that place with Jackson, gives a little bit more pressure on Nicholas Jackson to perform. I know we're going to talk about it later, but Noni Madueke, I'm a bit surprised, if to be honest.
Yeah, so he's been linked with Arsenal.
Yeah, been linked with Arsenal. Would that happen? But I do think if you go goalkeeper and a centre half, I think the two fullbacks or wing backs, whether it's James and whether it's Cucurella, I think they're really good. So I think there's a lot in place. I would say 80 to 85% of their team.
So where are they not in place?
I think definitely goalkeeper. I think that's an obvious. It's the idea of Arsenal needed a centre forward. Chelsea do need a goalkeeper. And I'd say one more centre half. And I think it's not going down the young route. I think it's a more established player that you get at the right age that is going to be a great servant to you over a long period of time still. Like with a 25, 26-year-old. Yeah. It's ironic that Mark Gay used to be a Chelsea player, and I'm looking at that type of centre half. So I think they're nearly close to being a side that can. I said yesterday, Nat, and I meant it, that Liverpool were in this sort of position last year where we had Arsenal finishing above Liverpool. Most people would have gone Man City are going to probably win the league, and Liverpool were probably the third option. I see that as Chelsea this year. I think that of a little bit more work in certain areas, Chelsea can be very close to being a challenging team.
It's interesting you mentioned age. I think that's the factor that could be the issue.
Yeah.
And look, they've had a good season under their belt.
It feels like it's always an experiment with Chelsea.
Well, that is, and there is an element of, if you have so many, Pep Guardiola alluded to this, didn't he, at the end of the season, saying he wanted to trim his squad because he said he was finding it hard to kind of say to players you're not involved, etc. If you have such a bloated squad, you end up in a situation, I suppose, where you are having to go, you're going to sit this one out.
Yeah.
And that's great if you need to just rest players, but you're not getting that momentum. So it takes time for players perhaps to get into a team, into a kind of rhythm, if you like. I'm assuming this as a fan. You'd know it better than me as a player, obviously. And also, when you look at what they've experienced this summer, we've got going back onto the player welfare side of things, and I know there'll be people right now thinking player welfare, here we go again. But it is a factor. They could be exhausted before the end of the season because of the Club World Cup, because of the season before, because of the Euros, where Cole Palmer even said the start of last season he found it difficult to get going because of the exhaustion of the Euros, especially if you're not used to playing those kind of summer tournaments. And that's might be a factor where it goes a bit wrong for Chelsea.
Yeah, I think.
But then again, maybe that's why you need the bigger squad.
Exactly, and there are concerns, and Rory Jennings was talking there and about some of the negatives that happened during the season. Chelsea did top the league at one stage. So
yeah, of course. They
were going really well. If you go back just before Christmas time, Chelsea were on a great run.
Absolutely.
So they are capable of mounting a challenge. Are they as good, in my opinion, as Liverpool now? No, but they're not that far away. Mm-hmm. But like I said at the very start, Liverpool were in this position last season when most people would have had Liverpool third or fourth.
But the difference for Liverpool in comparison to Chelsea is they've got experience, proper experience.
And the Van Dijk is...
Yeah, and I know there are players in this Chelsea team that do have experience, but I'm talking about also that winning mentality that you mentioned of Van Dijk and Mo Salah and plenty others in that.
But they won a European trophy as well, so there's a lot of good things. There was a lot of good things at Chelsea that are happening. And I know they've spent lots and lots of money, and they're trying to build. But I just think the experiment is going in the right direction, but just the little trimmings, the cream on top of some players that, Thiago Silva was Chelsea's still, he's still playing, he was still playing in the club.
I know, yeah, exactly.
And watching him play, but that type of player that comes in at a certain age and you go, do you know what? He just makes everything happen around him. I think they need that centre-half position.
Yeah. And he'll come up against them, won't he?
Yeah.
Fluminense that he plays for. Fascinating to see how it'll work out. Just quickly then, bear in mind the money that they've spent. Is the pressure on Enzo Maresca? Very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be.
Is it minimum, obviously, top four, but have to be title pushers? Do you think?
I think the owners of the football club are expecting a big season from Chelsea. Yeah. They might not want to say it, but I do think that they have put a lot of ducks in line for them to have a good season and not just qualify for the Champions League. I think they're thinking, we can push. We should be pushing now. This is the time. This season now feels like the time it's right for them to go, let's try and have a go at winning this title or being close. But there's a few problems in there. There's other good sides. And Arsenal will be feeling the same. Man City will be thinking, can't have the season we had last year. We had the fall of Manchester United and Tottenham, who would like to, Forest, can they kick on again and do well? All of these...
And Newcastle and Aston Villa
absolutely.
And all of these teams.
There's loads of issues out there, but I do think Chelsea have got real good side, capable of challenging around that. Would I have them to win it? No, but I think they're very capable of making a challenge out of it.
All right then. Okay. Huge season then coming up for Chelsea and Enzo Maresca. Right, on the way next, we'll stick in London, but we'll talk about Tottenham and what's next for them. A very good morning to you. This is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. It's the Crockenhill legend, Tony Cascarino, who is with me, Natalie Sawyer, and we're taking you through until the Sunday edition. Here are some of your headlines this morning. England begun their Women's Euros title defence with a 2-1 loss to France in their opening game of the Championships. Nottingham Forest have completed the signing of Botafogo striker Igor Jesus for a reported £10 million. And Tottenham defender Christian Romero looks set to leave Spurs amid heavy links to Atletico Madrid. Yesterday, on the Saturday session, former Spurs defender Stephen Corker said that Spurs should be doing everything to keep the Argentine.
He's a player that Spurs need, absolutely. He's someone who's sort of the backbone of Spurs, if you like. He's often given the armband there. If you are talking about defining season, I think, keeping hold of the leaders within the team, keeping hold of the more experienced players is going to be vital. It's going to be really, really important. So the fact that they are playing Champions League this season, I would like to see that, the bigger names stay. And Christian Romero is certainly one of them.
Listen, I'm sure Thomas Frank would love to keep someone of his ilk. Because the last thing you want is big name players, big players that can do a fantastic job to leave.
Yeah. I'm not his biggest fan.
Okay.
I'm not saying he's not a very good centre-half. I think at his best, he is decent at a lot of things. He's great in the air. He's good technically. I think he can be really rash and be quite costly with some of the decision-making he makes, where he can get red-carded easily at times. I think he's a quality player. But convincing players, I'm not a fan of. That you should be trying to convince a player to stay.
Yeah, you've always sort of said that.
I just find that, you've got to want to be there. Yeah. And I'm not sure he wants to be at Spurs. I feel like I might be proved wrong. But I've always felt there is something about me that he's played his best football when he's had to, and when Atletico have made a clear indication they want him. And that for me. And look, Tottenham have had that change of manager, and Thomas Frank, that will be one of his issues. He's got to look players in the eye and find out, do you want to be at this football club? Are you desperate to be at this football club? For the next 2-3 seasons, whatever. I'm always a fan of players actually going, I want to be here. There's nothing, think of it this way, Nat. I'll say this because I've had this conversation with a manager. They want you to come and join, and so you really they put their case forward why you could be a great player for the football club, and this is the place for you to be. But you've also been in where I've known the managers wanting to go.
Oh, right.
Right, and I think,
right.
So now, so it's okay. You're trying to convince players to stay, but actually, sometimes the managers got a chance to move on.
Yeah.
And have a bigger opportunity.
I hear you, yeah.
Where he thinks, that suits him to go.
Yes.
So and you sort of think, well, a bit of a contradiction somewhere along the line. So I've always felt like, managers, and Thomas Frank would have this issue. He's got to worm out the ones that think they're, maybe better than Spurs, or the options more attractive to them, if he wants to keep them.
Okay, well, look, let's hear from Jermaine Pennant, because after confirming the signings of Mathys Tel and Kevin Danzo, Spurs haven't been that active in the transfer market so far. It does bring into question if Spurs can attract big signings to help compete in the Premier League. And let's not forget the Champions League next season, being Europa League winners. Jermaine Pennant thinks they might have a problem attracting some big names.
If they've got better options, then it's simply they're going to choose those. So you got a lot, as Arsenal, Arsenal in a lot better place than Spurs are at the minute. Second 3 years in a row, Champions League football 3 years in a row. With Spurs, they played in a competition that's probably the weakest it's ever been, and beat the final team was, Man United are very struggling on all fronts. So you're not pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. Just because you've got Champions League football, it doesn't mean your club is in a great place. Your club's going to be challenging for major trophies next season. So players like Eze will think, whoa, I'm going to go to a team that's cemented, that's in a stable place, that's going to be challenging for these, potentially win a Premier League. So unfortunately, if you've got two teams battling for a player, Tottenham and someone at XYZ, they will choose the latter.
Not always.
I mean, that is the former Arsenal player, Jermaine Pennant.
Yeah, no. I mean, Jermaine's made a lot of valid points.
Of course, yeah.
But, you know, players do sometimes gut feeling of is this the right place for me to go? It might look the brighter option today to go to Arsenal, which it clearly does, but you could also turn around and think, well, actually, I think there's a project here. And
can you?
Well, I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you get a feeling from a manager, for example?
Well, I'll tell a little bit of a funny short story about what was said to me, but the way I said it. When I joined Millwall from Gillingham, I spoke to Ipswich and Leeds, and two really good clubs, and I just had this gut feeling that Millwall was the right place for me at that particular time. I remember thinking it, and John Docherty, who was the manager, years down the line, said to me, he said, "You wanted to come more than I wanted you." Right? And I laughed and I said, well, that's not really nice. I'd say, he said, I'd never had a player in front of me that wanted to come so badly. And I said, I found that weird conversation because he wasn't saying he didn't want me. He just said that he couldn't believe I was sitting there that keen to come to Millwall.
Yeah.
And I just said to him, I just had this gut feeling it was the right move for me in my head. Now, I'm not trying to be smart here, because we ended up getting promoted and we got to the first division for the first time in Millwall's history that season, at the end of that season. So I felt like I was justified in making that decision.
Yeah.
But I had that. Leeds was a way more attractive proposition. And Ipswich was probably more than Millwall. But Millwall made a massive effort for me to come, you know, and broke their wage structure and things like that. But I went with my gut. Leeds was a better option than Millwall at that particular time. And we're talking about where the clubs were placed. And although they were in the same division as Millwall, Leeds were the big hitters. They were always been the big hitters. Even in the Championship, they're probably going to be the biggest club in the Championship. You know, and I chose to go to Millwall with that option there. So I get it, but you've got to buy into. If you're thinking and looking at a club, it's not just where they are today. It's thinking, where is it going to be in a year, 18 months? Is it going to be good for me to play my best football as well? Which I thought it was. And I was right.
And of course, it'll be the factors of, am I going to start or am I going to be a bench player at this club?
Yeah.
Do I like the way the manager, you know, the way he is? Do I think I can work with him?
Yeah.
There's all these other factors.
Well,
And don't get me wrong, I'm sure at the end of the day, money comes down to a lot of this these days in particular.
Okay.
But you'd like to think there is an element of, you still need to pick somewhere you think is right.
So there's also a case of there's some players that might go to a club or thinking, I'm going to absolute start here and I'm going to be in the team week in, week out. Now, you're never guaranteed because you play poorly, you get left out. But there's some clubs, and Man City could tick this box, where you could go and you might not play a lot of football. And you've gone for, you know, the Jack Grealish type of move where you're a record buyer, and yes, he's won the lot and it's all fantastically great for him, but he's also at the period of his career now that he's probably thinking, I probably stayed a bit too long and now I'm on the fringes of the team, and there's never a given on all of this. So it's but
when he retires, he will be able to look back and say, look
absolutely.
what I won.
Yeah, cool, sure.
But I get what you're saying, of course. You've got to get that club. It's got to be right. Everything has got to be right in terms of, you know, the wage, but the feel of a club. I genuinely think that has a lot to do with it. They've been linked with Mohamed Kudus. I don't know if you saw this yesterday.
I did,
There are reports, David Ornstein saying they've had a bid of around £50 million turned down by West Ham. Does that make sense at Tottenham? Can you see that fitting?
Well, I thought he had an indifferent season last year. The year before, fantastic. Is he a talented player? Absolutely. He's a really gifted lad, Kudus. Didn't he get sent off at the game at Spurs during? I think when they
get red carded.
I think he got sent off. He ended up striking one or lashing out one of the Tottenham players. I think it's Mohamed Kudus in that game, because I think Tottenham, and that's the game they won 4-1. This is all off the top of my head because I was there, and I'm pretty sure that was the game that Kudus got sent off.
Stay with me, Paula. He was sent off in the 4-1.
Yes, and he lashed out. So I remember thinking, obviously a few words were said during the the bust up, but that doesn't change much. But is he a talented player? Yes.
So an informed Kudus.
Oh, absolutely.
Makes sense.
West Ham fans will tell you that. At his best, he's a real handful. Yeah. Can get a goal. He's got his ability. He's got the Gaza one when it comes across his body, where he can hold people off and just keep the ball and then run at a defender. He's great at doing that.
Well, we await to see really the big input from Thomas Frank and the players that he wants to bring in. Obviously, he's brought in a load of his own coaching staff, etc., and analysts and much, much more, I'm sure, as well. But it'd be a few months still to go before.
Well, we was slightly talking about off air, isn't there? There isn't too many transfers between West Ham and Tottenham, is there?
Yeah, interesting. My friend who is a Spurs fan, when I told her last night about it, she was like, when's the last time we've done business with West Ham? If it happens at all, it'll be because they will just make it difficult for us. That's what she was saying. So, yeah, that rivalry, sometimes it's just too much. But there might be a price where it'll just be too hard for them to turn it down, certainly. Look, there's loads more to come on the way next. We're going to focus on Spurs' North London rivals, Arsenal.
Cricket balls are red, baseballs are white, American footballs are brown, and tennis balls are yellow. We don't even think about it really, but the story behind the tennis ball is actually quite interesting, and even involves Sir David Attenborough. I know. Well, here's the tale. Tennis is widely known to be a French sport. It dates back to the 12th century when people used handmade balls, and it was then called tennis, which is the verb to hold in French. And people used some pretty wacky material to make the balls with. Cork, wool, chalk, animal fur, and even human hair. A few centuries on, Germany got dead into the tennis too, but wanted to make a few modifications to the ball to make it a bit more effective. Around this time, an American chemist had just created something called vulcanized rubber. Out of that, people started developing air-filled rubber balls, which were properly bouncy, but either red or grey in colour. These were manufactured in Melton Mowbray. That's right, the home of the pork pie. One problem, the balls kept on breaking on impact with the racket. The call of new balls please seemingly coming over every other point. Step forward English lawyer and tennis enthusiast John Moyer Heathcote, who suggested balls be covered in flannel to stop them from degrading. And thus the modern-day tennis ball was born. But these were white or black, so how did they become yellow? Well, in 1967, the controller of BBC Two, one Sir David Attenborough, decided the corporation should show Wimbledon on colour TV. He got his wish, and it was wide into people's homes across the country. The only sticking point, the white balls were nearly impossible to see on the screen. So the International Tennis Federation, sensing an opportunity, started developing a new ball that would be visible even without the need for 4K LED displays. Not that anyone had that in the late 60s. After rigorous testing, they came up with the colour optic yellow and decided every ball be coated in that colour from there on in. And there you have it. Tennis balls are yellow, all because Sir David Attenborough wanted to watch Wimbledon from the comfort of his own front room. You could say the ITF aced it.
Good morning. This is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. I'm Natalie Sawyer, and with me, it is the former Marseille striker known as Tony Goal. Of course, it's Tony Cascarino.
Good morning.
England, wow, they didn't get off to a dream start as they were beaten by France in their Euro opener as they look to defend their title. There is work ahead then for Sarina Wiegman and the Lionesses.
And England's title defence begins with a damaging defeat in Zurich and arguably their worst major tournament display under Sarina Wiegman.
From the England women's team to the England men's cricket side, and they have lost the key wickets of Ben Duckett, Zach Crawley and Joe Root. Can they get anything versus India on day 5 at Edgbaston? Sam Ellard.
Well, England have it all to do on day 5, resuming 72 for 3. The target for victory is 608 runs. That is unlikely even by baseball standards. Pope and Brook will resume this morning at 11 o'clock on 72 for 3. 536 runs to win for England, but the key number for India, 7 wickets for them to win this match and level the series.
And Sam will have live reports with day 5 getting underway from 11. Also, the British and Irish Lions, well, they made it 3 out of 3 on Australian soil after their victory over the Waratahs.
Offload to Mitchell. They feint right. Go left. Alex Mitchell with another fake and scores the try. Finn Smith, his Northampton and England teammate, would have had an absolute walk-in, but Mitchell holds on to the ball and the Lions have their 3rd try of the evening.
Yeah, 3 wins out of 3, but not many convinced by that latest victory. We'll have more on that a little bit later on. And before we start talking about our next subject, you do realise we are streaming. Yeah?
Yes, I know.
So when you're gurning at the screen, people who are watching us can see it.
I had my teeth done, didn't I?
Well,
I was just checking them.
Showing them off.
Yeah.
They're not turkey teeth, but they ain't far now.
No, I didn't want turkey teeth.
I know you didn't. And they're not at all.
They're all right though, aren't they?
Fantastic. Cost a fortune, but, fantastic all the same. All right, let's start chatting about Arsenal,
Got to do
shall
the rest
we?
now. Got to do everything else.
Oh dear. Arsenal then, seemingly on this never-ending hunt for a striker. They've been linked with some of Europe's top strikers like Victor Gyökeres and Benjamin Sesko, but nothing's happened as of yet with either of those. Some news yesterday revealed they are closing in on a surprise deal to sign the Chelsea winger Noni Madueke after agreeing personal terms. And speaking after the Club World Cup win over Palmeiras, the Chelsea boss Enzo Maresca was asked about Madueke's future.
Noni has been very important for us during this season. Today, again, he has been important. But my message to the players and to the club is that I want just players that they are happy to be with us. The ones that they are not happy, they are free to go. And it's not for Noni, it's for all the players we have. But again, Noni has been very good during the season and very good tonight.
Yeah, I was talking about Chelsea earlier, and that is the concern of the manager. I mean, I get it to a degree that they might not want to be part of something if they're being left out. But you're talking about an England player. I don't think he's done too much wrong. He really excites me, Noni Madueke, when I watch him play.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of times I remember in the season thinking he was dropped, he wasn't playing, and look, it could all be down to the sports science side of things, and they saying you need a rest or whatever. But there were just a couple of times where I know even we were like, well, why is Madueke not playing? Because he had that great link-up play with Cole Palmer, it felt, and things like that. But maybe
I'm not convinced Chelsea fans are happy about that one.
No, but you know what? Maybe that'll end up being Arsenal's game.
Yeah.
Let's speak to someone who's a big fan of talkSPORT, part of the talkSPORT broadcasting team as well. It's Harry Simeo. How are you, Harry?
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Very
we're
well.
good. I've got to ask you, Harry, because I'm surprised, and I've got a good few friends and a couple of my children Chelsea fans, and they wouldn't like to see that happen, and improving their rival in their eyes.
Yeah, it's a strange one, I think, from an Arsenal perspective. I understand why Chelsea fans would want to keep a hold of Noni Madueke. He's an exciting player. He can beat a man. He can cut inside on that left foot and do great damage. From an Arsenal perspective, though, it feels a little bit of a strange link because, we keep talking about the striker, as you guys mentioned at the top there. feels like the priority. I think we all agree as Arsenal fans that we could do with bringing in another wide player as well. But I think the general consensus is that we'd prefer it to be someone that plays from the left-hand side. But Bukayo Saka's got the right-hand side nailed down. I mean, I know Madueke could operate from the left, but he clearly does his best work from the right. And then you start to think about how Madueke would fit into the Arsenal group if he was to come in, and is he going to play second fiddle to Bukayo Saka, or are you going to convert him to a left winger? It begs a lot of questions, and I just think as much as I like Madueke the player, and as much as I think he's exciting, and he's got a lot of what Arsenal are missing in terms of that trickery and that guile in the final third, I just wonder if this would be the best use of funds, because to get him out of Chelsea, you're going to have to pay, I would imagine, more than 40, maybe 45 million pounds. I don't think this is going to come cheap. And I just think with Arsenal seemingly not being able to get the striker thing over the line because they don't want to pay, as far as we're aware, what RB Leipzig are asking for Sesko and haven't reached what Sporting want for Gyökeres, you're looking at this and you're going, is this the best use of funds? And looking through sort of social media and speaking to other Arsenal fans, I don't think the Arsenal fans are excited as disappointed the Chelsea fans would be if this was to happen.
That's interesting.
Here's one for you. Is he capable of playing centre forward? Well, I'll tell you for why. Because I had a chat with Natalie at the start of last season, and I said, I think one day Madueke could play a centre forward, because all of his attributes, and he's a decent finisher as well, by the way, that he could play that role. I think there's a period in his career that Madueke could be a centre forward.
I think for me, he doesn't feel like a natural fit at centre forward. I agree with you in that he's got some of those attributes that would make him an effective one at times, and maybe in certain games under certain circumstances. But Arsenal have been crying out for this natural centre forward for such a long time. It's probably been 3 years. You know, we thought that Arsenal were going to do it last summer. They ended up going and signing Raheem Sterling. That was their only attacking recruit. Then January came along, obviously hit by injuries. People thought that maybe they'd push the button and get someone in to do that role. They didn't. And now we're in a summer where, for me, it's imperative that Arsenal get in a natural centre forward. And again, going back to what I was saying about Arsenal fans maybe feeling a little bit underwhelmed by the idea of Madueke in general, there'll be riots if he was the one to come in as the centre forward. I think you're right in that he has a lot of those qualities, but Arsenal are looking for a sort of more natural fit in that position, I think. So for me, I don't think that really works.
I mean, it's an interesting one because it did seem to come out of nowhere. And like you rightly pointed out, Harry, if he's not happy at things at Chelsea right now because he's in and out of the team, to play as we've seen on the right, he's hardly going to come in ahead of Saka. So it just doesn't make sense that he would come in just as to play second fiddle. That being said, let's talk about other links to Arsenal. And I saw last night, there's someone I know who's very well connected at Brentford, and he wrote a big farewell to Christian Norgard, which, and I know this has been talked about already, but it feels as though it's just a matter of time now when that's going to be a done deal. And it's a bit of a snip, isn't it? Of 10 million with a few add-ons, I think it is, something like that. What do you make of that signing with Christian Norgard?
I've got to admit, when that news first broke, I wasn't massively excited by it. It's not because I don't rate Christian Norgard, right? I want to make that clear. It's not because I don't rate Christian Norgard. I think Arsenal have lost a lot of experience in the midfield this summer. And I think that for me, you know, Martin Zubimendi coming in is obviously really exciting, and he's a big player, and we're waiting for that one to be announced. So we're not concerned about whether that's going through or not. It feels like it's done. But it felt like, to me, we could have done with someone who knew the club already, and that's why there was talk about keeping one of the options that we had at the time, just to kind of help Martin Zubimendi adapt. Now, I know Christian Norgard, I beg your pardon, knows the Premier League and knows it inside out, but he hasn't played for Arsenal. He hasn't made that big step up yet. I think the price, as you mentioned, Natalie, is a brilliant price, and I think for that money, it's a gamble certainly worth taking. But I did at the time wonder if that was the right move. I think now that I've had a bit of time to kind of process it, and I've looked at the way the rest of our window is starting to shape up, I feel a lot better about it. But I still worry that midfield is lacking that real top level experience, given the players we've lost, versus a Zubimendi coming in who needs to adapt to the Premier League, in my opinion, and then a Christian Norgard who's been a great Premier League player, but can he be the guy that helps Arsenal elevate to that next level? I've still got question marks over it, but it's certainly something that's grown on me as an idea as the weeks have gone on.
Yeah, you're sounding like a true Arsenal fan. You're pessimistic but slightly optimistic. Is that a fair assumption?
Look, I think from an Arsenal point of view, right, we are desperate to get over the line. We are desperate to take that next step, okay? And for a few seasons, we felt like we were really close. And then the summer comes along and, it's all about adding, and it's all about how we can fix things, how we can take that next step. In particular, in the midfield, we've lost players. So there's always going to be question marks about the ones coming in and whether they can, first of all, maintain that level, and then second of all, take us to that next level. And you hope that's the case. But listen, Arsenal promised us, it was said by Josh Kroenke that this was going to be a big summer, that we were going to show our ambition, that we were going to take that next step in terms of our recruitment. And if you look at the summer so far, and I know it's early, so I'm certainly not pressing the panic button, but Kepa's come in as a backup goalkeeper. Understand that, fine. We're linked with a project centre-back in Christian Mosquera from Valencia. Norgard's coming in as a player who I've got some question marks around, as I say. Zubimendi's an exciting signing, but of the ones that we're close to doing, that's the only one that you look at and go, Arsenal might have gone out and bought one of the best in class. So maybe if they go and get that big name centre forward and they go and bring in a top winger, I think the perception of the window completely changes. But right now, you're looking at it and you're asking the question of whether Arsenal have actually got better so far.
I mean, I know it's still early days, but Harry, are you sort of surprised that we're talking about all these players, but none of it's a done deal? Why is it all taking so long?
Yeah, I was surprised, in particular with the centre-forward thing, that we weren't ready to sort of push the go button. You would have thought that given that's been a need for such a long time, that Arsenal would be much further down the line in that than they are currently, as far as we're aware anyway. So I am surprised by that. The Zubimendi thing was always going to be done in July because of some financial reasons that, were, I think, beneficial to us, but also to Real Sociedad primarily. And obviously, as far as I'm aware, and I'm only going by what I've been told, I think that Arsenal were planning to announce that on the day that Diogo Jota sadly passed away. And I think Arsenal hit the pause button on that, and rightly so, because it wasn't the time to be celebrating a signing. So I think you'll get that announcement next week. I think you'll probably get a Christian Norgard announcement next week as well. So it feels like it is starting to move. I agree that, it's been a little bit slow so far, but the one that everyone's looking at is the centre forward. And where the frustration kicks in is, we knew that this was a need for such a long time, and yet we're nowhere closer to doing that. And that's the frustration. So listen, pre-season tour kicks off in about 9-10 days time. You want to get those players in by then. And if they do, then whether they signed them today or tomorrow doesn't really make too much difference. So no need to panic.
No, Harry, but I guarantee you by the start of August, Arsenal fans will be delighted. I'm sure they're going to get a big one in. It's going to happen.
I think so too. Yeah. I think so too. But when you care that much and when you're really kind of invested, it's hard not to go through that roller coaster of emotion.
Oh, we hear you. Harry, it's always lovely to have you on the show. Thank you.
Cheers,
Thanks
Harry.
for having me.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
That is Harry Symeou joining us to talk all things Arsenal. Yet to make the big signings, but as Harry alluded to there, maybe next week is the day or the time to see some names coming through that door at the Emirates. We will see. Okay, on the way next, Cass and I have picked out a couple of stories we think we want to highlight from the papers.
plays that villain role very well now. That's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
Good morning. Thanks for tuning in to the Weekend Sports Breakfast this Sunday morning. It is a man who knows how to do a shampoo and set. That's Tony Cascarino. He's alongside me, Natalie Sawyer, and we're with you until 10. As you all, I'm sure, are aware, Oasis kicked off their long-awaited tour in Cardiff, and we are giving you a chance to win a pair of tickets to their Manchester gig on July the 19th. It is completely sold out, but talkSPORT can get you in, and the competition ends on Monday. So that's tomorrow. You don't have long to wait. That is not all. Alongside those tickets, we'll put you up for a night in a hotel and give you $5,000 as well, completely tax-free. So listen up on how you need to enter.
All right, kids, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, for the chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay and $5,000 spending money. Text the word Oasis to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester, CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. Good luck, yeah? Sorted.
Yeah, we wish you the best of luck for that. Right, let's get to the papers, where Cassava and I have sort of scanned through them all and picked a couple of stories we just wanted to highlight. So where are we going with you?
Yeah, I wanted to go, Nat. It's in the Telegraph, Sunday Telegraph, and it's by Jeremy Wilson, and it's to do with Krejcikova yesterday in the tennis, where it was a tough watch because she broke down and took a medical time out. And Martina Navratilova spoke about how tough a watch it was because, you know, obviously seeing a professional athlete, the former the Wimbledon champion of the previous year, break down during the match. And it was really tough, Nat. And what I like about the piece, it's really as well about how often now sports people are breaking down. And, you know, yesterday was hard to watch, and I was also feeling for her opponent, Emma Navarro, and how hard it was for her, because as she's crying, she's breaking down, she's against, you know, the holdings, and just like with her back to the play, crying her eyes out and trying to get herself together to finish the game, and she's literally on the verge of being knocked out. And even for her opponent, you know, that is tough, because what does she do in that moment as she's watching her opponent literally fall apart? And I just found it very interesting about this sort of article of, you know, how these sports people are so driven to be successful, and the moment then it's not happening the way they're trying to win a game, and they feel like they're on the verge of losing and they're not handling it right. And this is just, for me now, it's just more about how common this is becoming in sport. We're seeing breakdowns all the time of different sports people.
Yeah. She spoke about it afterwards, obviously, and said it was all down to her energy. She just lost her energy levels. She'd said, she won the first set, and she said, like, I started off really well, and I was really pleased with how I was playing. And then just something happened. She said, something snapped, and I just lost all my energy and just became more and more distressed.
Yeah.
I guess partly there was a motivation issue. She couldn't get herself going again. She sort of said she started eating bananas and taking sugar to kind of give her back that energy, but nothing would work. No. And
it went on that for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. She was
totally
literally crying her eyes out during a match, and she was, like you said, distressed.
Yeah, it's awful to see that, and it's something I know we've spoken about before, about the difference. And look, anybody at any time can suffer with something, whether it's a mental health issue or whatever it is. And I always think, and like I say, it can happen in a team, but within a team, especially like in this situation, if something happens on a football pitch, you can be subbed off, so you can be cared for in that sense, or your teammates can come around you and hopefully cajole you and G you up to get yourself going again. She's on her own. She's an individual sports person that, yes, she's got a team sat somewhere on the court.
Well, you could see visibly they really didn't know what to do.
But there's only so much they can do. They can't even get down to her to motivate her in that sense. It's awful and really sad to see that. And
I've never seen anody break down as much. I mean, look, we could go back to 1919. You remember Gazza crying during the game against the semi-final.
Yes,
which obviously he got booked and he was out of the final.
Yes.
And he was crying during the game.
Yeah,
and it was visible, and it was. In the end, it became a sort of a funny thing, didn't it? Where there would be jokey sort of things of pouring out of his eyes, and even he got to grips. He got to grips with it.
Spitting Image loved it, didn't
exactly. But it seems like the modern sports, whether it's men or women, we're seeing this way too often, where they're just losing their ability to perform.
Yeah.
In that manner, it's strange how we've gone.
It's also the dealing with pressure, and it's
or the pressure they put on themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. Listen, it's very different coming through to win a tournament that maybe nobody expected you to win, as you did last year, to then come in as the defending champion. Yeah. And look, the women's game is so hard to call. I think they've had 8 different winners in the last 8 years, Wimbledon. That's how hard it has been. Whereas you look at the men's game, you tend to go with it's a Yannick Sinner or Carlos Alcaraz and, Novak Djokovic, for example. But, I can only imagine the difference of walking in this year to last year for her and how there was a lot more pressure put upon her.
Well, there's a lot of empathy for her. And in the piece talks,
which is lovely to see.
Which is people are trying to understand why this is happening. And hopefully we've learnt a lot from yesterday at Wimbledon, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm going to take you to the back page of The Sun, which then actually moves into the inside onto page 61. And we were talking about strikers for Arsenal, and they're yet to bring one through the door. Well, Manchester United, it seems. This is the headline. Lou in. Manchester United in talks for freebie Dominic. So Manchester United, so says Alan Nixon, as an exclusive, are making a shock move to sign the free agent that is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's available after leaving Everton at the end of his contract this week, and it seems that United boss Ruben Amorim wants to snap up Calvert-Lewin. This is all down as well with the Red Devils Chiefs having to juggling their finances and try to build a new forward line. They're yet to bring in Brian Mbeumo, for example, with my insiders telling me that their valuation is way off what Brentford are asking or wanting. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I mean, this would be quite a shock move, wouldn't it, to Manchester United?
Well, it's quite ironic, Nat, that during the course of the season, I asked my boss at the time, I said, I want to go to Brighton. I want to do a piece on Calvert-Lewin. And this, I think it was about sort of Marchish time, maybe close to April. And I went to the game, sat at my spot, written a load of notes down, and 12 minutes, he gets taken off injured. And it's only just when David Moyes had rejoined the club.
Right.
And so I thought long and hard about how I was going to go about making a piece out of Calvert-Lewin. And the answer was, do you know what, Nat? I really looking at him physically. He looked like he'd been in the gym a lot.
Okay.
And he looked more of a gym player. And I say a gym player because when you get loads of players who are injured regularly, they end up doing too much gym work.
Oh, okay.
And their muscular, their body, how it's made, feels like they're more of a, I wouldn't say he'd grown physically and expanded with his muscles. I don't mean like that. He just looked like a gym player.
Okay.
And more because of the agility. And if you remember his younger days, and of course he'd have put on a bit of weight as he went through the motions of maturing as a footballer, but being slight and a bit more wiry, that's what Calvert-Lewin was. But if you look at his injury record, it's dreadful. Now, is he a player that would be a good if he was useful, if he's fit? Absolutely. Calvert-Lewin at his best and being fit is a good player. He's a real handful. He's probably one of the best headers of the ball in the Premier League. You know, his ability to get off the ground and hang and direct headers is exceptional at doing that. But he doesn't get on the football field enough. So whoever he's obviously chose to leave Everton as well, maybe for pastures new, and I'm sure that there would have been contact from other clubs. But it's clearly a player you're going to have to take a gamble on whether he can play enough football. Because I don't know that answer. Yeah. Because if I'm taking of his injury record over the last 2 or 3 years, it's not good reading.
No, absolutely. And if you look back to a few seasons ago, like 2019... for a few seasons, he was in demand.
Oh, absolutely.
He was Harry Kane's understudy for England, for example.
And he's still, what is Calvert? He's probably 28. He's 28 years old, yeah. So he's got a lot of football in there. So really, you're taking on a player that you're rolling the dice to say how many games is he going to play. If we get him at full fitness, he is a handful. And he'd lead the line really well. He's good at leading the line. But I would have serious concerns of how much football he can play. Look, if he's prepared to go to a club and he's going to say, I'll play on performance, that if I'm out there
just to quickly wrap up what this sort of says, it suggests that if they balance the books, United, then they feel that they can create a gap in Amarim's squad for a new man who can lead the line, but also would be happy to be a backup forward.
Yeah.
And obviously, a free transfer means a lot of people will think, well, that's a no-brainer. Yeah. Why not? But of course, when you're a free transfer, you might be able to command a little, your wages come into a factor, and because you've not paid a transfer fee, he might suggest. I'm not saying he's going to suggest want a lot of money, like demand extortionate amounts of money, but it's not a freebie as such. There are wages to consider as well.
It's got to be an incentive contract. It's got to be backed up with appearances, goals, matches past season, and I just think that's the only way I would want to attempt to bring in Calvert-Lewin, because I'm not questioning his ability, I'm questioning the amount of football he's going to play.
Of course.
You have to when a player's been injured so regularly. Like I said, I went to Brighton, went to watch him, 12 minutes he comes off injured. I don't think he appeared again until the end of the season. I don't think he played a game after that game at Brighton. But if he did, it was very few. So it's an interesting story, because we're talking about a quality player who has seen better days, but he's been blighted by one thing, and it's always been injury.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, just a couple of stories then that we picked out from today's papers. On the way next, we'll look back at what's happened at the Club World Cup. A very good morning to you. This is the Weekend Sports Breakfast this Sunday morning with former Republic of Ireland striker Tony Cascarino and me, Natalie Sawyer, as we take you through until 10 today. Let's focus on the Club World Cup, shall we? Last night, talkSPORT brought you coverage of all three games. In the early hours of yesterday, Chelsea went through to the semi-finals after beating the Brazilian side Palmeiras 2-1. And then later on, there was a clash of European heavyweights with Champions League holders PSG taking on the German champions Bayern Munich. Are we... Gab, producer Gab. We have the goal. We can play this. Just checking. Here's how it all sounded.
Into Doué. Left-footed shot from Doué. Into the bottom corner. And that may be the goal that takes Paris Saint-Germain into the semi-finals of the Club World Cup. Pulls it back for Dembele. And they've done it now! Ousmane Dembele sends the 9 men of PSG into the semi-finals. And what an incredible finish we've had in Atlanta.
Indeed. It was a game, we should say, that was overshadowed by a horrific injury to Jamal Musiala, who'd only just come back from injury. This was his first game, in fact, at this Club World Cup. But in a collision with the PSG keeper, Donnarumma, it looks as though he broke his ankle. I mean, it's not one that you want to see.
No,
let's put it that way.
Hopefully he'll make a full recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was an incident that obviously as soon as Donnarumma gets up, he looks and he averts his eyes. He knows it's a bad one. Something like that, I can only imagine how difficult it is to play on when something horrific like that. For everybody involved.
Yeah, well, it certainly affect the Bayern team because, he's a popular player that has been extraordinary. He's a real difference maker, Musiala. Very, very gifted. We just hope and pray that he comes back and can be the player that we know he's capable of, because he is a real talent, and it would have affected them. I mean, watching what I saw in that of the game, and PSG are just a machine. They are just a machine. I thought it'd be a hard game for them. I actually thought Bayern might get the better of them because PSG are just foot on the pedal down all season. They've been like that, and I thought out in America, the weather, the climate that may have a little bit of effect on them. Not at all. They were extraordinary, and I've got to say, and I said this off air earlier, Nat, Hakimi is for me the absolute Ballon d'Or of the season. His performance last night again. Right back, come wing back, come. I mean, for the second goal now, his ability to dribble and go around, literally exploit a space, take on a few players, get past them, and just square the ball back for the goal. It's just brilliant.
Yeah,
just top notch. That's what he's capable of.
Yeah. It was interesting, actually, when we started the show at 6, we mentioned where I was on Friday, and I was at this Sir Alex Ferguson event, and we talked about the Champions League final, and he had said, because he was there, and he said very early on, he was like, this will be 5, 6, 7. He was that confident in that, just the way that both teams were playing that very early on in the game. And we were obviously waxing lyrical about this PSG side because of so many youngsters in it that are just going to grow and grow and get better and better, you imagine.
Doué, who obviously scored yesterday, has come on leaps and bounds. I mean, I don't even think Dembele's that important for them, even though he had a great season last year. There's others, I think, Neves, Vitinha. They've just got talent all over the pitch, and their work ethic is extraordinary. Enrique has put a team together that when Barcelona were at their very best at getting the ball back off the opposition so quickly, that's up there. They're up there with that level, because that was extraordinary. The old 6-second rule. Can we get the ball back in 6 seconds? PSG are literally relentless at doing that and doing it really well with high energy. They're a fantastic side.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the French leagues are given to them now. There's no one going to get near them next season. I mean, they're probably going to win by 15 points. Gosh. They will be the team to beat in the Champions League. They'll be the team to beat this year in the Club World Cup. Wow. They've become the if you beat them, you're going to win it.
Well, it feels like that, certainly. They will face Real Madrid in the semi-finals as they got the better of Borussia Dortmund with a 3-1 win, which included a fantastic goal from Kylian Mbappe.
Now Goulet from the right, clips it in. Mbappe! He's off the mark at the FIFA Club World Cup with an acrobatic volley at the far post. Real Madrid 3, Borussia Dortmund 1.
He was a substitute in this one, so brought on and scored that fantastic goal, as we said. I only caught the latter part of this one because I was keeping across the women and the Lionesses. And the goal that Borussia Dortmund scored, which came from the penalty spot, it did lead to a bit of a frantic kind of last few moments in the game. In fact, it finished 3-2, didn't it? Yeah. Because of that penalty. So it did lead to a bit of a frantic sort of end, but which was quite exciting. And Dean Howson was sent off for Real Madrid as well, we should say. But again, and I also found it fascinating, I should say as well, that Xabi Alonso, I bet he didn't think he'd come up against his former side as quick as it's ended up being. It's quite cool.
It's weird, isn't it, how football, the matchups, you say that, and then Kylian Mbappe with obviously PSG, a team that he represented and couldn't win the Champions League with, he'll be playing against them. And I don't think, and I said to you this before during the season, I think Madrid are quite a long way behind at the moment. I do feel they're a side that are going to have to improve a hell of a lot.
I don't know why I said that about. Is that no? Bayer Leverkusen.
No, Bayer Leverkusen.
I don't know why I said that. I got all confused.
Well, I thought he was talking about former club, as in Real
Sure, let's
Madrid.
just say that. Yeah. Let's just say that's what I meant.
But yeah, so honestly, Nat, Real Madrid, I think will be hard pushed to even get close to PSG, as in their ability to work rate. I think PSG will hurt Real Madrid because Real Madrid don't do quite the same level. And I think they'll find it difficult. I think PSG are firm favourites, and rightly so, in that game. But the brilliance of an individual like Mbappe can do, which he's always done, in a moment he can change a game. He's that capable. He can do an overhead scissor kick or a stunning run that can, he can convert into a goal. He's that type of player. But remember that PSG were prepared to let him go as well. When he left, there was quite a lot of happy people, and I'm including the fans here, who wanted him gone. They felt felt he'd caused too much damage.
I was going to say it was that internal issues. It felt like it was,
and he wasn't performing in the way that they know he's capable of. PSG fans saw him be an absolute star for a number of seasons and loved him, but towards the end of his time at Paris Saint-Germain, they felt he was doing them a favour by just being there. And he was choosing whether he could play centre forward or whether he had to play on the left wing.
Right.
And we all know he's a wonderful talent. You can't question that. But there was a reason he went to Real Madrid. It wasn't just based on money. It's because also PSG were prepared to go, do you know what? We have to move on. And Enrique was instrumental in that. Luis Enrique wanted to make that move happen so he could put a team together that he felt was capable, and was proved 100% right by a team ethic that could win them the Champions League, not an individual.
Again, that was something that Sir Alex mentioned, which was really interesting. He was saying, all these players that they once had and got rid of them, and look what they've achieved now. And, it goes to show you don't necessarily need the big names. No. You just need that team ethic.
They're great as long as they build it, buy into that team ethic as well.
Yeah, of course, there's nothing, absolutely, but it can't be all about you. Has to be that team ethic, and I thought that was interesting. Just quickly, Chelsea will play the Brazilian side Fluminense in their semi-final, and Chelsea are having a pretty good time of it in this Club World Cup.
They're
earning fortunes as well
to pay their fines. They're paying their parking fines. Fines are everywhere now, aren't they?
What do you mean parking fines?
I'm joking. All their fines on transfers. I say that because parking. No, I say that now because I'm joking, and a lot of listeners are out there listening, and probably you get fined so easily now with parking. You do. You are literally everywhere. I know, but it's just a little bit of a thing.
Have you been fined recently?
No, Joe got fined, and I got the you get the email through.
This is Mrs. C.
And she thought it was an absolutely perfect place to park, but there's a tiny little sign.
That's the worst.
That used to be okay to park, but now they've put a little sign that's tiny when you see it, but it says no parking here. But and showed me the size of it, and it's hard to see it.
But you know what?
Sorry, we've got off on one here.
We're of a certain age where we do like a little moan up every now and then, and we've talked about signage. It's everywhere.
How can you keep your eyes on the road and there's signs everywhere and don't go down this road, not that, and you're like, we're trying to drive.
Yeah, exactly. And
anyway.
Can you appeal them?
No chance.
Anyway, we digress. Right, when we return, we'll bring you all the very latest transfer news. Plenty of clubs linked with moves. We'll discuss it next. Good morning. This is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. It is a man who was given the freedom of the French town of Nancy, Tony Cascarino, who is with me, Natalie Sawyer. We're with you until 10. Why are you sniggering? Are you still thinking of our moments?
I'm still thinking of the fines.
Yeah.
I'm laughing to myself because you know when you wind yourself up?
We all do it, yeah.
Oh, it just feels like it's everywhere you turn. There's some sort of stealth tax or some fine. There's something for.
I know.
Can't do this. Gone down that road. You shouldn't go down it.
Oh, that's the worst.
That's happened as well. My missus drove down a road that she wasn't meant to go down.
Yeah.
Turned around, realised she made a mistake, drove back up the other side and got done twice. Twice in 2 minutes.
But is it? Oh, no.
Going down a road, she goes out, and comes back, realises, and turns around and comes back in the other end.
That's not fair. That's the case.
Twice.
But honestly, there's far too many signs. How do they expect you to drive safely if you're meant to be reading all these signs and you can't go down this road, as you say, and you... Oh, I don't know. Anyway. We will not be moaning. We'll be more positive. Here are some of your headlines today. At Silverstone, it is set to be an exciting British Grand Prix as Red Bull's Max Verstappen pit McLaren's Oscar Piastri to pole position with the very last lap of qualifying. Burnley have announced the signing of England right back Kyle Walker after 8 seasons at Manchester City. What do you make of that one?
I like it. I like it from Scott Parker. I think it's a really clever signing. 2-year deal, apparently.
Yeah.
A lad with huge experience. Will bring something to the table. They had a great defensive record last year, and I think that you can play different formations with Kyle Walker. You don't have to play a flat back four. You can play a three.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it. I think that they're a particularly young group as well.
Yeah.
Burnley. So I get it. You know, when we were talking about Chelsea earlier, and sometimes you've got to bring in an experienced player that brings a lot more to the table. I think that's what you're really doing with Kyle Walker at Burnley. So yeah, I like it.
And likewise, they re-signed Ashley Barnes as well, I think, for this season. Again, another experienced player. And as much
old heads around a young group is very important.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Ashley Barnes will know he's not going to play every game.
Exactly.
But I remember that being at the Burnley end of season dinner, which was part of their community trust, I should say, dinner, they said that part of the reason they were promoted was when they brought him back in January, because he just changed, had this experienced head in the dressing room that kind of just got more.
Well, there's a duty to you when you're experienced. I was this myself at Nancy. That's one of the reasons when I went there, I was asked to be the senior pro, but also a good pro to motivate the younger lads. And sometimes I'd be left out, and it was for a reason, and to play some of the younger lads. And my duty was not to moan and complain, and it was just to help the group get over the line, whether it's to be survival in the Premier League, but to be a good pro. And there's a lot to be said for it, Nat. If you get someone like Ashley Barnes or Kyle Walker come in and you stay up and they've played their part, even if they're not playing sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with you.
I get it.
Just finally, headlines-wise, Novak Djokovic says he is blessed to have sealed his 100th victory at Wimbledon with a statement third-round win. Here is Lisa O'Sullivan, and she took us through day 6 at Wimbledon on talkSPORT.
Victory for Novak Djokovic means he's now clocked up 100 match wins at Wimbledon, and that puts him in an exclusive club alongside Martina Navratilova and Roger Federer. It was a great day for the Italians. 3 men into the last 16 for the first time ever. Lorenzo Sonego, Flavio Cobollo and top seed Yannick Sinner. In the women's, Elena Rybakina went out, as did the defending champion Barbora Krejcikova. But there were wins for Iga Swiatek, who'll play Clara Tauson, who before this week had never won a match in the main draw.
Lisa, thank you very much. Just to let you know, there's only 2 Brits left in the competition, but both of them in action today as well. Sonny Cartal starting things off on centre court, and Cam Norrie is also in action. He's second on court on number 1. So
initially 23, wasn't there? Was it 23 Brits initially?
I think that's right, yeah. And they had the best ever first day, didn't they? But down to 2 now. So fingers crossed they can continue what's been a great tournament so far for both of them. Right, let's talk transfers, shall we? Ethan Nwaneri, Cass, is reluctant to sign a new deal at talkSPORT. Well, I mean, that would be true.
That's clips of the week.
Ew, that was not good, was it? A new deal at Arsenal without guaranteeing playing time, so talkSPORT understands. There we go. That's what I was trying to get to. Nwaneri is into the last year of his contract at the club, and there is reportedly interest from a number of European clubs. When you've just had a player like a Nwaneri, homegrown and all that, is it just as important to keep hold of someone like him?
Yes, it's been a strange time for him because he's not quite broken into. He's shown moments of brilliance for Arsenal, but then in the under-21s as well, Nat, he was on the bench.
Yeah, I know.
So, he's probably had a time of reflection where he's thinking, I've got to be playing more football. I couldn't get in the under-21 team, and yet he would have been one of the big names going into the tournament. Obviously, Harvey Elliott plays his position, really, doesn't he? That sort of wider right side with the under-21s. It's a tough one for him. He's maybe thinking, I can only from the outside is how much football he's probably asking himself, is he going to play next season?
He's only 18 though.
Yeah, I know, but he might be an 18-year-old that wants to play football.
Well, I know, I don't get
on a regular basis.
Of course, but I get that. But to be already in an ultimatum scenario seems a bit extreme, no? For an 18-year-old who's just really only just broken in.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point, but you have to convince him that his time will come. You believe in him that much, you'd sit him down and you'd say, look, you are going to play next season. In certain competitions, you're going to play. And if you perform to a certain level, absolutely, we're going to play you more often. But we believe in you over a period of the next, 1 to 2, 3 years' time, that you will be one of our main players in this side. And if you can convince him of that, just keep plugging away, doing your best, train as best you can, show that you're ready to be put in the team at any time, and hope the lad goes for that. Because at the moment, they can't guarantee an 18-year-old, but he's quite a unique talent as well.
Oh, no, absolutely.
So you've got to be really careful.
Absolutely, but you might have said the same of Harvey Elliott.
Yeah.
And the career that he has forged. Now, I know
but he's not played enough.
No.
He's not played enough.
But now it seems the conversation is he going to leave?
He has to leave.
Yeah, yes.
He has to leave now.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. But he's, 4 years older?
Yeah,
so
he's 23, he's 23, so 5 nearly, you could say nearly 5.
Yeah, but he still had that, experience at a club that's won things and, been a part of a winning culture.
That's a really, really good point. I mean, at no time did I want Harvey Elliott to leave the club.
Mm.
I liked him, and I always said to you, there's something about him that I always feel I can trust him. Yeah. He can come up with a moment. He's tenacious. He always wants the ball. He loves wearing the Liverpool shirt. You can tell by the way he plays football. And Nwaneri is not there yet, but there's going to be a period over the next couple of years of, does this lad go backwards as well? By not playing enough football.
Yeah, that's the dilemma.
You want him to absolutely be upbeat and wanting to play as much football as he can. And he's got to win. He's got to earn his stripes. When you're 18, you have to earn your stripes to be in the first team.
Well, one of the Premier League clubs linked with him, won't be a surprise to hear who it is, Chelsea. They might do a swap deal. Madueke, Nwaneri, all that malarkey. We'll see what happens. Yeah. It's been reported as well that Chelsea have been offered the chance to sign Aston Villa's Emiliano Martinez for £45 million, though the 32-year-old Argentina goalkeeper is believed to prefer a move to Manchester United. What do you think of that?
Don't know, really. I don't know. I mean, he's a terrific goalkeeper.
Yeah.
He obviously has had an incredible time at Arsenal. This was the second goalkeeper at Arsenal that was let go. And he's gone to Villa and he's won the World Cup and he's had an extraordinary time at Villa as the number one. 45 million seems quite a lot for a goalkeeper, but goalkeepers can play on to their 37, 38 and then even closer to 40. I mean, the goalkeeper who's 44 for Fluminense, Fluminense, that's it. I always get them wrong. But anyway, he's 44. Fabio.
Okay.
44 years old. So you can show how long Buffon had played to a really late age. So Chelsea need a goalkeeper. Whether it's Man United, but I'd say, of course, you think of Man United. I don't think Onana's going to be the number one there for sure. I think that decision's already been made. So it's personally where he thinks he's better to go to.
Yeah, so a tug of war might
Manchester United will pay, quite obviously, the bigger salary.
Yes, yeah, I hear that. Yeah, absolutely.
They will.
And I know what you're saying, 45 million seems a lot, but, he has the ability to say, look, I've been voted the best keeper in the world.
Yeah.
I've won plenty of plaudits and I'm a World Cup winner. So there's reasons why. I'm not saying that he's put that price tag on him, but there's reasons why Aston Villa can put that price tag on him.
So does a goalkeeper add on 15, 20 points to you? And I'd say yes.
I was about to say, of course they do.
Yeah. A goalkeeper that's worth his weight in gold will add 15, 20 points to your season.
Yeah.
So, of course, it would be vital for either Chelsea or Manchester United.
Let's also quickly bring you thoughts on outgoings at Manchester United. Anthony, Alejandro Garnacho, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, just a few of the players who it is reported they want to leave United, so we understand here. The 5 players have all informed the club of their wishes to depart Old Trafford this summer. Can you see any of them being able to be shifted?
Yeah, if they're prepared to give way on their salaries, yeah.
Yeah.
It's an obstacle. You give players huge wages and that, and they've still got 2 or 3 years to go, and they're earning, 15 million a year. Then they're going to have to give something back. They're going to have to accept a lower wage if they want to go and play football. Some of them might go, no, I'm going to sit it. I'm going to sit it out.
Yeah.
Which is a danger for the club, and it's a danger for them because their career long term, they'll pay a price for that.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see how many they can ship out, certainly. But that is part of the need of United. They do need to ship some of these players out if they want to bring in some of the others that they're reportedly being linked with. And we mentioned it earlier on with Dominic Calvert-Lewin as a free option, but they need to sort of make the room for him as a potential option. Not necessarily a starter, but an option off the bench, etc., or certainly not playing as regularly as he might want. Anyway, right, we're going to head into the next hour of the show and review what happened with the Lionesses.
Cricket balls are red, baseballs are white, American footballs are brown, and tennis balls are yellow. We don't even think about it really, but the story behind the tennis ball is actually quite interesting and even involves Sir David Attenborough. I know. Well, here's the tale. Tennis is widely known to be a French sport. It dates back to the 12th century when people used handmade balls, and it was then called tennis, which is the verb to hold in French. And people used some pretty wacky material to make the balls with: cork, wool, chalk, animal fur, and even human hair. A few centuries on, Germany got dead into the tennis too, but wanted to make a few modifications to the ball to make it a bit more effective. Around this time, an American chemist had just created something called vulcanized rubber. Out of that, people started developing air-filled rubber balls, which were properly bouncy, but either red or grey in colour. These were manufactured in Melton Mowbray. That's right, the home of the pork pie. One problem, the balls kept on breaking on impacts with the racket. The call of new balls please seemingly coming over every other point. Step forward English lawyer and tennis enthusiast John Moyer Heathcote, who suggested balls be covered in flannel to stop them from degrading. And thus the modern-day tennis ball was born. But these were white or black, so how did they become yellow? Well, in 1967, the controller of BBC Two, one Sir David Attenborough, decided the corporation should show Wimbledon on colour TV. He got his wish, and it was wide into people's homes across the country. The only sticking point, the white balls were nearly impossible to see on the screen. So the International Tennis Federation, sensing an opportunity, started developing a new ball that would be visible even without the need for 4K LED displays. Not that anyone had that in the late 60s. After rigorous testing, they came up with the colour Optic Yellow and decided every ball be coated in that colour from there on in. And there you have it. Tennis balls are yellow, all because Sir David Attenborough wanted to watch Wimbledon from the comfort of his own front room. You could say the ITF aced it.
Good morning, this is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. We're live on your radio, YouTube and your smart TV as well. I'm Natalie Sawyer, and with me is the former Gillingham striker, Tony Cascarino.
Good morning.
The British and Irish Lions made it 3 from 3 on Australian soil after they beat the Waratahs yesterday.
Offload to Mitchell, they feint right, go left, Alex Mitchell with another feint and scores the try. Finn Smith, his Northampton and England teammate, would have had an absolute walk-in, but Mitchell holds on to the ball and the Lions have their third try of the evening.
England's cricket team have lost the key wickets of Ben Duckett, Zach Crawley and Joe Root. So can they get anything against India on day 5 at Edgbaston? Sam Millard.
Well, England have it all to do on day 5. Resuming 72 for 3. The target for victory is 608 runs. That is unlikely even by baseball standards. Pope and Brook will resume this morning at 11 o'clock on 72 for 3. 536 runs to win for England, but the key number for India, 7 wickets for them to win this match and level the series.
And Sam will have regular updates from day 5 once play gets underway from 11. Callie Rowell. I see your tweet or your post. Clips of the week. Ethan Waneri is reluctant to sign a new deal at talkSPORT. Yes, I said it. I claim it. I relish it.
Al going for a wage rise, wouldn't he? If Waneri comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Big Al saying, I want a wage rise.
I should be the highest paid. That's what he'll think. Right. Let's talk England and the Lionesses, shall we? Because they have some work to do after losing their opening game of the Euros, losing 2-1 to France. Here's how it all sounded live on talkSPORT.
It could be the first ever year that England win a trophy on foreign soil, an England senior team. And the reigning European champions are about to get off and underway at Euro 2025. Plays a low ball and Lauren Hemp is free. Saved by the goalkeeper and pokes it on the rebound. It is Alessia Rousseau. The referee is signalling here that it is ruled out for an offside in the build-up. France on the counter straight away. Cascarino in behind down the right. Drills it across. Katoto! 1-0 to France. Beyond Williamson. Baltimore with a shot. And France have scored again. And England are all over the place. Reed is giving it away. Katoto through the middle. And Gioro is onto it. And Hampton has let it squirm through her grasp. But has grabbed the ball just before it crosses the line. Questions have got to be asked. A major tournament performance, the like of which we haven't really seen from England under Serena Vigo. Chloe Kelly drills in the corner. Adjumang is up, headed away to the edge of the box, and the curling shot is in! England are back in it after all! What a goal from Kira Wolf! Everybody's forward. Adjumang is jumping. It's flicked on towards Russo. Goalkeeper flaps it in, and it's off the line by Basher to deny him. And England's title defence begins with a damaging defeat in Zurich.
Not an ideal start then for England. Before she joins us live shortly, talkSPORT's Courtney Sweetman-Kirk caught up with England's Lucy Bronze and asked the defender if that disallowed Russo goal cost the Lionesses.
Yeah, maybe getting that chalked off was swing the momentum a little bit. I think France then kind of booked their ideas up, played really well. We struggled maybe in the second half after that. Lost a bit of our quality, lost a bit of our energy and enthusiasm, and France capitalised on that. I think then going 2-0 down was a difficult game to come back against anyone, let alone France. But yeah, the fight at the end was good to get a goal back. Probably left it a little bit too late to really push them.
Joining us now then, as I mentioned, it is the former Liverpool and Sheffield United forward, Courtney Sweetman-Kirk. Morning to you, Courtney. How are you?
Courtney.
Good morning, both. I'd have been better with an England win, but still got a smile on my face.
Yeah, a real deflating way to start, not just because of the defeat, but the performance in general, Courtney. It was just so below par.
Yeah, totally agree, and that's what worried me more than anything. I think the first 20 minutes we were really dominant. Obviously, at the end, we put on a good showing to try and get ourselves back into the game. Obviously, it was just a little bit too late, but yeah, that middle section, I think a lot of England fans, obviously pundits and commentators alike watching will be a little bit worried with that performance in the middle for sure.
There were issues, Courtney, fullback areas, especially. But Lucy Bronze had a tough evening, and Jess Carter, I mean, handling my namesake, Cascarino, Delphi Cascarino, who was really hot on the night. It's caused a lot of problems, and I felt for Jess Carter because that's not a natural position, and yet I thought the wide areas where France really made a difference.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cascarino and De Almeida specifically down that side were absolutely excellent. And yeah, I think, individually those fullbacks didn't have the best of games. Jess Carter's one was a bit different. I think she was getting doubled up on in terms of she didn't get the help maybe from Lauren Hemp tracking back, or in terms of stopping it at source in the midfield as well. I don't think England were good enough doing that. On the other side, I think to a degree maybe at times Lucy Bronze caused their own problems because we know she's an attacking fullback. She likes to get forward, but obviously our Chelsea teammate Sunday Baltimore is great, fantastic player at getting forward, got that pace and probably knew as well that Lucy was going to get forward, so there was going to be that space in behind Lucy to exploit. And then it's a decision, isn't it, for the centre-halves. Do you stay and try and protect your goal? Do you come out? When you do that, obviously there's more gaps everywhere else. So, at times England were certainly at 6s and 7s in the defence.
We spoke about it earlier on, Courtney, where we were saying, look, it's not all doom and gloom. You can lose a group game and still go through. The problem is it's the Netherlands who are up next, and they had a storming start, beating Wales 3-0. And obviously there are lots of stories with Beth Mead and Vivian Miedema, for example, that make it all the more interesting as well. But it just puts a lot of pressure on the Lionesses, doesn't it, going into that game on Wednesday?
Yeah, it does. I think, in an ideal world, obviously you want to win the game. But I said before, the game, a draw, I think is a good result against a good France side. And obviously just to get a point on the board. But you're right. And what worries me about the Netherlands, one, obviously they've got fantastic players through the team. We saw Viviane Miedema's goal yesterday. She can make something out of nothing. But again, they've got great wide players in terms of Kasper Rye's got bags of pace. So has Esme Brooks as well. So in terms of that issue that France caused last night, obviously the Netherlands will be looking at that thinking, well, we've got white players that are just as good, just as fast. So then that begs a question in terms of, Sarina Wiegman England, did they stay the same in terms of the formation? Did they change the personnel? I think, me and Tash and Joe Shannon spoke about it yesterday. In terms of like-for-like replacements in those areas, we've not really got anything that changes in terms of pace. So then it might be the fact we saw towards the end of the game, the Lionesses went to a 3 at the back. They went with wing-backs in Chloe Kelly and Lauren Hemp. So maybe it might spell a little bit of a change in formation for the Lionesses.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you look at and you go, well, who was England's best player? And you probably go, well, Hannah Hampton in goal. She was probably the best, caught well, handled things. It could have been worse on the night. So Sarina Wiegman has got lots of issues to find out about her team. Russo's a top striker. You've got players there that you'd think, There's capability there. There's a team that can make something happen. Seeing Russo being so isolated for such long periods, and that she's got a capable goal record.
Yeah, and you've hit the nail on the head there, Cask. In terms of Leslie Russo, I thought she worked really hard yesterday. The way she was dropping in, linking play, she was doing really well in terms of her hold-up play, winning fouls. But in terms of the service, and everything that was around her, she's got to be looking round at her teammates, and maybe Alessia Russo as well needs to be a little bit more nasty in that sense and be turning round and be like, girls, come on, I'm doing all this work, I'm making these runs, but I'm not getting the service. So, that's something that needs to be looked at. But you're right, in terms of, for me, I think Alessia Russo, Hannah Hampton were the best players on the pitch. I think Lauren James, obviously, a moment showed what she's about. Probably should have done better with the opportunity in the first minute, at least hit the target. But obviously, she's still not fully fit. And when I spoke to Sarina Wiegman after the game, she was. Now, I said to her, "Is it always the case that Lauren was going to come off at that time as she on limited minutes?" And she said it was. So it'll be an interesting one to see, what happens for her throughout the tournament and whether she can build her fitness into a 90.
One thing that also I remember seeing, Jess Carter afterwards spoke about feeling as though that there was a bit of they were a bit scared coming up against this France team. And I know they turned out to be very physical, this France team, and brilliantly so. But does that worry you when you hear players talking about feeling scared?
Yeah, it does. I think it's one thing to feel it, but I think obviously to come out and admit it as well. I think it's quite an interesting thing to say. And don't get me wrong, like, France are a fantastic team. We've seen it, that forward line in particular, the forward line that started and then the forward line that they then proceeded to bring on that front three. And so, look, they're a great team, but I think that fear is interesting because you think that England, they should come into this defending champions. Obviously, they've got to the World Cup final. They were beaten by Spain, albeit, but you feel that before the tournament, Spain and England were the favourites, so they should go in that with bags of confidence, sort of heads held high, thinking, right, everyone's got to try and take this off us and be confident in that. But maybe that works the other way in the fact that they know they've got a bit of a target on their back. Everyone's trying to take the European trophy off them, so maybe there is a bit of fear in the camp, and that's what we've seen in that moment yesterday, where I think it changes the dynamic. That goal, I've looked at that picture, by the way, the semi-automated picture, 1,000 times now, and I still can't work out where that offside is.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, look, there's the Netherlands next up for England. Big game. Beat Wales 3-0 comfortably, which wasn't a real big surprise because Wales' first tournament.
Yeah.
So a challenge for they can't be frightened of playing the Netherlands. They're going to have to show a lot of character because this is going to be another tough game for them.
Yeah, they're going to have to come out. They're going to have to be on the front foot and try and get an early goal. And look, it's all been said before the tournament, group of death. So we knew coming into this it was going to be a really tough group. But the fact of the matter is the way that it works in terms of goal difference and head-to-heads and obviously points. We need a result. There's no two ways about it. But Netherlands are a fantastic team throughout. I think I was looking at the team sheet yesterday and you're thinking, yeah, fantastic player, brilliant player, brilliant player. They've got it throughout. So, and as I mentioned, that pace on the wings is something that bothers me. But that's obviously something that England are going to have to find a solution for.
Yeah. Just finally, I suppose. I mean, it's never good when you're chasing a game like we saw with England, but the last sort of 10 minutes or so, when England got that goal, and it felt as though, and even Emma Hayes actually said it afterwards, they just had a little bit more time. We always say this, don't they? If they had 5-10 minutes more, they might have got an equaliser. It felt like it was turning. In a way, can they take a positive from that final sort of 10 minutes and sort of say, look, we can be aggressive, we can be on the front foot?
Yeah, they have to. There's no choice. They have to take confidence from that, because if they don't, they're going to, go into the Netherlands game in terms of not being in the right place psychologically. So, I was impressed with Adjeman. Even though she only had 5 or so minutes, the way that she comes on, she's so aggressive. And I spoke to Serena Wiegman before the tournament, and she was saying she brings something a bit different. I said, what is the difference she brings? And it was that physicality. She's aggressive. She's not bothered in terms of that ignorance is bliss at that age, isn't it? She's got no fear. She just comes on the pitch, nearly scored. Obviously, we saw the wonder goal in the Nations League, wasn't it, against Belgium? How well she did there. So yeah, I think there's positives certainly from the first 20 minutes and the last 10. But as we know in football, you've got to put a more coherent performance together in these major tournaments, because it's really fine margins.
Indeed. Listen, it's been fantastic to chat to you, Courtney. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Courtney.
Bring us the luck on Wednesday.
Thank you both. Speak soon.
That is Courtney Sweetman-Kirk then, who is out in Switzerland, helping us bring you all the very latest from the England camp then, and on these Euros as well. OK, on the way next, we're going to bring you the latest odds from Coral.
Plays that villain role very well now. That's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally, and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
You're tuning in to the Weekend Sports Breakfast this Sunday morning with a man that once got 2 assists in an FA Cup semi-final. Yes, that is Tony Cascarino, and he is with me, Natalie Sawyer. We were having a little moan up earlier on, if you were tuning in, about fines and, well, just all sorts of things, really. Not just fines, about driving and how can you possibly know what you're supposed to do on roads these days when there are about a million signs to read? But it got us thinking about fines, didn't it? And it turns out Cass has been a naughty man quite a few times on the roads.
Some trivial things.
Yeah, parking ones and stuff like that.
Parking, yeah. I've done I've even had the 24 miles an hour in the 20.
Oh, yes.
Which in London at 4:30 in the morning, there's nothing on the road and you're doing 24 mile an hour. And it's so easy to do. On the Old Kent Road, for example, it's like 2 lanes for most of it, and you're doing
and when
24.
It's quiet. You think, I know what you're saying, The law is the law, though.
Yes, I know. But there are sometimes, there's no leeway at all. You can get penalised now for really trivial things. And sometimes accidental, obviously. Yeah?
Yeah, I agree with you on
Tickets
that.
for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, where I live, I have a parking spot and you have to have a permit to show that you have the right to be there, which I find slightly ridiculous because, you know, to get in there, you have to have a clicker to open the garage and all that sort of stuff. So I'm thinking, well, most people that are in there because they have the right to be in there. And one day it fell off the windscreen and it was on the floor. You could see it because I remember taking a picture of it, but I still got fined because it wasn't displayed.
I know. Haven't we got really trivial over lots of things? There's no leeway on anything anymore. It's either black or white. You did this. You were doing 24 and a 20. Yes, okay. You had your a photo ID. It was on the floor. You could quite clearly see if you was a warden that car was okay to be parked there. But they ignore that. We're still going to fine you.
I know.
It feels like
that was my fault.
Do you not think in some ways that's why it creates a little bit of anger with drivers sometimes? Because there's continually I know people who have never been fined in the last few years, and I can't mention their name, but one of them's a manager who lives locally to me. His wife got her first fine, and she's 64. Okay, her first speeding fine ever, and it was another speeding fine like mine, 24 mile an hour. She was absolutely devastated that she got her first speeding fine. And it's like, you've all them years of driving and you've been done.
Yeah.
And, you know, even people like that have been caught who have driving so carefully.
Yeah. I know.
Anyway.
So maybe this is a chance for us to all...
Do you know what? Why couldn't you, and this is still safe driving, why couldn't you introduce 25 mile an hour as a fair speed?
I am not the law.
You know, New York is 25 miles an hour.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
No,
25 miles an hour in New York.
I had no idea.
And I remember thinking, surely London could do 25. Surely that seems a more sensible speed. It's not dangerous.
Well, listen, I don't know the difference in the sense of the 20 and 25 that you're suggesting.
Well,
but the reason they obviously say 20, you're more likely to stop if there's a person that runs out in the road. It is quicker, your reaction and everything like that.
25 slow now.
I'm just saying that's why it's down to 20, but I also know it's infuriating for a lot of people. But we're talking about fines. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the fines because
you end up getting fined, didn't you?
I know. But we want to talk about the more silly reasons that you got fined.
The sillier ones.
Because you didn't even talk about your exploitation of car parking that you were telling me in the break about parking in a petrol station where you shouldn't do because you want to go over to the local cafe. And you finally got fined after how many times parking there?
Good for
Quite a few. So look out for the registration of it. So yeah, we want to know about your ridiculous fines. Just have a bit of fun with it this morning.
You've grasped me up there.
Yeah, I did. Because this is how we get people interacting with us. 1889 is the text number. The WhatsApp is 03717 223344. I live a saintly life. Right, let's bring you the latest odds from Coral.
The Coral Daily Download on talkSPORT with Coral. We're here for it. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Very good morning to John Hill.
Hi, John.
Good morning, guys. How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good. You ever been fined, John?
You knew it was coming, John.
No. Well, I'm not a driver, actually, Cass. Well, I have a licence, but living in London now, I literally, I don't bother. I jump on tubes and buses and public transport across London. So I've avoided the fine so far. So, yeah, but I do share your frustration there. It does seem harsh at times when you listen to some of your stories, Cass.
Yeah. I was hoping you was going to give me a really nice story there, John, and you haven't.
Sorry, I don't have it with me, I'm afraid, no.
That's all right, John. That's all right.
I follow the law.
Exactly. You're a good man, John.
Good citizen.
Exactly. Unlike you, the lawbreaker over there.
I know.
Let's talk about the odds then. The Club World Cup that's taking place right now. Chelsea through to the semi-finals. They're taking on Brazilian side Fluminense. And the other end, you've got Real Madrid taking on PSG. Whoever gets through to this final, it's going to be fascinating, especially that second semi-final. Two great teams. So tell us how this one's looking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 4 great teams in the semi-finals. We had 2 great games yesterday, didn't we? Brilliant win for PSG. Over Bayern Munich and Real Madrid beating Dortmund. PSG now the favourites at 6-4. Real Madrid second best at 7-4. Chelsea available at 11-4. And then Fluminense, who have been really good and really impressive. They're 16-1 outsiders, but I think we've really underestimated them there. I think they've got a great chance against Chelsea. I don't know about you, Cass, but that's not going to be an easy fixture for Chelsea, is it?
No, not at all. And, I look at this last four and think that, PSG obviously are the best team. I think they've shown that already in this tournament, and their work rate is incredible to match. But there's a real technical side to some of these teams as well. So, it's nice to see a South American team in there as well. I didn't want it to be all European because that wouldn't have reflected well on. I know you should be there on merit, but I just feel like one of them teams from South America deserved to be in the
way
final.
It was panning out, it felt like
City,
it could have been, obviously, if they'd not been knocked out, but City would have played Chelsea in this semi-final if it worked out.
That's
so you're right.
Yeah. And I think it needed a South American team, or anyone outside of Europe, didn't it? Really, this FIFA World Cup. Otherwise, it's just a Champions League number 2, isn't it? Really, So hopefully, with future editions, they can get stronger, and we do start seeing other, non-European teams make the latter stages, because that'll only make it stronger.
Okay, shall we talk British Grand Prix?
Yes, fascinating days, Tim. We've got British Grand Prix, Wimbledon, the test match as well, which we can talk about if you like. But British Grand Prix, Verstappen is on pole today. He's going to start at Silverstone on pole, Max Verstappen. He's the 6-4 favourite to convert that to victory. Will we get a British winner of the Grand Prix? Lando Norris is 3-1. Lewis Hamilton, he had a good lap yesterday. He's 10-1. For a victory from here, but it is Max Verstappen, as I say, on pole, Natalie, and 6-4 to convert that to victory.
John, you mentioned the cricket. Obviously, India are going to be short and look like they're going to run away with it. But is there any particular odds that look like maybe a little bit more intriguing for England?
Well, I look at it from I'm a traditionalist. England have got it at 536 runs today. I think they've got absolutely no chance of doing that. Even if in their minds, they were telling you last night that they don't play for draws, and who knows, they'll assess it as the day goes on. But they're 33-1 to win from here, England. I would be astonished, even in the Bazball era, if they were able to knock off these runs. I think they've got to play for a draw today. That's 5-1. Harry Brook and Pope will enter the crease this morning. If they do draw from here, it'll feel like a victory because India have just dominated. England won the toss. They put India into bat, and that was a big mistake because they just put up a lot of runs, didn't they? Shubman Gill's just been sensational, the Indian captain. They're 1-7 to win from here, and there isn't long for them to move on for the third test. It starts on Thursday at Lord's, so these bowlers have bowled a lot of overs, England. I think they're going to have to freshen it up regardless of the result today when they come out on Thursday morning at Lord's. So India 1-7 to level the series at 1-1.
And let's talk about Wimbledon, shall we, and how you see that one playing out.
Yeah, British interest today. Cameron Norrie had a fantastic run in this tournament. He's on number 1 court, second up today against Nicholas Jarry. He's 3-4 for a victory in that one. And then opening up on centre court today, this has been one of the star stories of the week. Sonai Cartel, she's had a fantastic tournament. I think she's the shortest player on the women's tour, is the Cartel. She's really small, isn't she? But really good player, and she's had a fantastic week, as I say. She's 17-20 today to beat Pavlyuchenkova. So fascinating to see those two players in action. Carlos Alcaraz, he's last up as well on centre court. He's 1-12 to beat Rublev today. And just looking at the outright market, Carlos Alcaraz 5-4 favourite to win the men's title. Yannick Sinner 13-10. Novak Djokovic, who prevailed yesterday, he's 4-1. And in the latest tournament, Sablenka, she beat Raducanu on Friday night. She's odds on at 9-10, the world number 1. To prevail in the women's tournament.
Did you happen to see Nick Kyrgios, who's obviously working alongside talkSPORT for this Wimbledon? He was speaking about Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner and saying who he thinks in the long run will win more major tournaments. Did you see this one? What he said? He said it'll be Yannick Sinner because Carlos Alcaraz likes the women. He gets distracted by the women.
Well, don't we all? But,
in the sense, so I'm not saying Yannick Sinner. I don't know what Yannick Sinner likes, but he was just saying he gets distracted by the women. I thought that was interesting.
It's an angle I'd not looked at. You assess their games, their first serve, and all the return and whatever else. And fascinating that he's thrown that one into the mix.
I like that insight. I thought, there you go. There's Carlos is a little flirt, I think he's basically saying. There you go. Brilliant, John, as always. Thank you.
Cheers, John.
Have a great day. Cheers.
That was John Hill from Coral. It is 18 and over. BeGambleAware.org. Please do gamble responsibly.
The Coral Daily Download on talkSPORT with Coral. We're here for it. 18 plus, BeGambleAware.org.
Keep your fine stories coming into us. We've already had some crackers. Although, how about this from John? Hater grass. I mean, come on. It was hardly grassing him up now. Have a bit of fun, John, yeah? It's not all serious.
Yeah, old goody two-shoes next to me.
I've had one parking fine, apart from the one in my, because that was like...
What, did you just accidentally, or you overstayed the time, or what?
No, what it was, I was at the end of... I was using my dad's car for some reason. I can't remember why. And I parked it on the end of the road, and it was at the start of a red route. I was just over the line. Funnily enough, that red route, that's gone. I keep looking at it thinking, there used to be red route here, and it's not here anymore. So anyway, I got a proper fine.
Just slightly don't get your parking spot on as well.
Got to be within the lines.
It's just like, really?
I know. Keep them coming to us just for a laugh this morning. You can grass people up for a laugh, John. All right, for a laugh. 81089 is the text number, or WhatsApp us on 3717 223344. On the way next, as we always bring you on a Sunday, we'll bring you our musical guest who might have a bit of a Brentford influence.
No.
Finally. Morning. This is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. Pleasure to have your company, and it is Tony Cascarino, the former Millwall striker, who is alongside me, Natalie Sawyer, and we are with you until 10 this morning. We'll bring our musical guest for you in just a moment, but we've been asking for you to get in touch about the ridiculous fines that you have been given, whenever it might be. And we're talking more about not your footballing fines. We're talking more about parking and silliness and things like that. And we've had some great ones in. First of all, if you so wish, you can do so by sending us a voice note to WhatsApp. That's on 03717223344, because sometimes it's just easy to record a little voice note. And that's exactly what Kevin's done.
Good morning, Nat and Tony. I got a parking fine a couple of weeks ago for staying 8 minutes over in a little car park, and got a fine through for £90 for just being 8 minutes late leaving. So I appealed it, said I took really badly ill in a friend's shop, and basically got the email back the other day saying that my fine had now been quashed. So, but yeah, it's ridiculous how they can try and charge that much money for such a little time over.
Kevin knows how to play the system.
Yes, well done, Kevin.
Well done, Kevin.
Power to the people. We've got old Supergrass next to me, Bertie Smalls. Bertie Smalls was a Supergrass.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, he was a Supergrass back in. I think
Supergrass.
I think he.
What did he grass? Who did he grass up?
Well, I think he gave a lot of information to the police about obvious people, and he was known as a Supergrass. But it was the name that everybody used to throw out, Bertie Smalls. So I don't know all his details, but I think he was in the 70s.
Stop being in John's camp. Start getting a hate campaign against me just because I like to try and do. I'm not perfect, as I said. I've got a proper fine.
Goody two shoes.
I got a proper fine once, but then I had because it's like it's not a warden, it was a private parking thing, and I'm good.
And they're different as well.
Yeah, I know, and I did pay it, and then afterwards everyone's like, "You should have."
Did you get your £1.50 as well charged for paying it on your credit card?
Probably.
Yeah, you get £50 fine and then pay £1.50 as a charge for the transaction.
I hear you.
It's mad, isn't it? The modern world is nuts.
I know. This is from Andy talking about fines near to where I live. There's a car park near to a pub that is free from 6 to 8. On New Year's Day this year, there were parking wardens loitering at 8 a.m. on the 1st of January, giving tickets to everyone that had left their car overnight so they weren't drink driving. But that's a bank holiday, New Year's Day.
Surely that's a free day.
But I guess if it's not, it has to be signed that, bank holidays are free, and if it's not, it's not. Talking about your speed limit, Adam, the Blackburn fan, says, I bet if they put it up to 25, you'd be doing 29. You got a point there. Adam. The man don't know those rules, that man. This is from Mike. He says, I got fined in a car park where both ticket machines were broken and there was no online option. Crazy.
Yeah, again, that's crazy. I've heard of that before.
Well, common sense should prevail, but clearly it doesn't. And we've had loads. This is from Tom, who says, I'm a chauffeur, was parked on a quiet side street near Heathrow one day as I was waiting for an early flight. I was sat there an hour, no problem. Time came to get ready and go, turned the car on, sorted the sat-nav, looked up, and there was an undercover officer knocking on my window. Apparently I had been idling for longer than 2 minutes, and he slapped me with a £100 fine. I didn't even earn that much for the job. So says Tom. That's a bit hard.
Fines are excessive, aren't they?
They are more and more.
Yeah, and they're getting higher every year. They're just jumping.
Yeah, that's not fun. I hear you completely. Let me see. John's back. Thank you, John. He said, I got fined €120 because I missed my train for legitimate reasons, and the conductor didn't want to listen, just kept on saying, read the T's and C's. He videoed me without warning. So he was filming me. I was going to complain about this behaviour. Customer care. I don't think so. Terrible experience, he says, John. I mean, that's not great. When there's there just needs to be an element of compassion sometimes, because sometimes genuinely people make mistakes, and that's all it is. It's like, sometimes my friend Claire was, where was she? I forgot where she was. But she'd flown in from a holiday, and because the flight was early, they had already booked their train to go home, but it was a later train. Yeah. So you think common sense that people would let them get the earlier train. No. If you want to get that earlier train, you're going to have to buy a ticket. And you just think, come on, they've bought a ticket. Just let them go on that train. Otherwise, otherwise you've got to sit and wait however long they have to wait for. So, sometimes we just lack a little bit of common sense. That's all. So keep them coming into us this morning. We'd love to hear about your stories of ridiculous fines, for example. But we're going to move on because we're going to talk a bit of music right now. And I'm sure, should we play a bit of the music? Let's hear this song that I'm sure many of you will recognise.
You know I love ya, just wanna touch ya.
Oh, I'm sure many of you recognise Hard to Beat by Hardfi, a real anthemic album that was, came out in 2005. So they're celebrating an anniversary, a 20th anniversary of their album Stars of CCTV. And I'm delighted to say, joining us this morning is Richard Archer. How are you, Richard?
Richard? I'm good, thanks. How are you guys?
Very
good.
well.
Moaning a bit, Richard, about these fines. They're everywhere.
I just try and keep my nose out of trouble and keep my head down. So,
That's it, Richard. That's what us Brentford folk do.
Yeah, you're all goody two-shoes in Brentford, aren't you?
I hate a fine. I can't. It eats me up inside. So I just try
and. The injustice of it. Oh, it's horrible, isn't it? Look, we'll talk Brentford in just a moment, but we obviously have to talk about the fact that you're celebrating the anniversary of the album Stars of CCTV. So how are you celebrating? What are Hardfi doing?
So we've releasing reissuing the album on vinyl, because at the time it came out on vinyl, but only about 500 copies, and if you want to get one of those now, they cost hundreds of pounds. So we're reissuing that with some of the demos and things you haven't heard before, and we've been doing a few shows. Just trying to kind of roll back the years, basically.
Yeah, well, that's great stuff. Yeah.
So it's been good, it's been really nice. People are still listening to it and, living their lives by it, which is kind of amazing to me, really,
Yeah, after all this time, it must be wonderful, really. Did you play at Glastonbury, is that right?
Yes, we did.
Oh, what was that like?
Last Saturday, yeah, it was good. It was a little bit of a hit and sort of like in and out. We kind of drove down there, did the gig, drove out again, so we didn't get to sort of like take in too much of the atmosphere. We were just trying to keep it, sort of a raid really on Glastonbury. But it was great. We headlined the Avalon stage. The crowd were terrific. It was it was full of people, and it was really nice, really nice.
Richard, tell us about if you take your album in 2005 that came out, and music is always evolving and changing very quickly, and you feel like sometimes in a decade you can get left behind. And how have you done that with Hardfi, of continuing to get music out there that people want to hear and evolve as a band?
I think you just got to do what you like doing, because if you sort of try and anticipate what the next big thing's going to be, I think you're probably going to come unstuck unless you're just got to do, as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, and then it doesn't, even if things don't go as well as you'd like, you've enjoyed the process, right? So because you can't dictate. I mean, we were saying, we'll reissue our debut album on July 4th. At that point, we didn't know that Oasis were going to come back. And then the tour that starts on July the 4th, right? So you have to take that on the chin and roll with it, to coin a phrase. But
I was going to say.
So you just sort of, I think if you've got to enjoy the process, and then what will be, really, and just keep doing your thing. It is quite strange. I was thinking about this, how, the music scene changed so much quicker back in the day, didn't it? If you think of like the music that was sort of around from, like, say, 76 to 1986, it changed so many times so quickly. Every year you'd be out. Even if you're a punk, you'd be out the next year, suddenly, and whereas now it sort of seems to have slowed down a lot. It's kind of, everyone's taking their time.
Yeah. So obviously, as you mentioned, the coincidence of Oasis coming back, and they're kicking off their tour in Cardiff on Friday, like you say. Do you feel like there might now be a sort of love? I mean, they've never gone away. You've never gone away. You still have your fans, but maybe a reignition of love for sort of indie music.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think obviously Oasis are a bit of a phenomenon, aren't they? Because people are going to go to those shows who probably never had an Oasis album. It was just the thing to do. And, it's difficult being, I think I always think about the new bands, really, because it's really hard being a new act anyway. And then being a new band, even now, just getting gigs, getting anywhere, it's expensive, it costs money, and it's really difficult. So it would be nice if there was sort of people started checking it out more and gave those guys some more support, guys and girls obviously more support, because it is really hard to start now. It's harder than it ever was.
So it'd be nice if, whatever Oasis do and not the little bit that we do compared to that, if that just kind of helps bring along some new acts, that would be terrific.
We've got to get to Brentford, Richard, because obviously Natalie every weekend, and it's been a bit of a tricky period because the transition of the club and obviously the manager going, then certain players leaving the football club, Mbermo, and Norgard.
We're waiting.
So how are you feeling? Are you looking forward to this next era? Because obviously Thomas Frank was such a big influence on the club.
Yeah, well, I've just been sitting there, repeating the mantra, trust the process, with like my fingers crossed and sweaty palms.
I hear you, Richard.
It's been quite, I don't want to use the word harrowing, but it's been kind of like, oh my God, every second someone seems to be leaving. But I thought it was really interesting what Phil Giles, the sort of director of football, said the other day about how Liverpool, promoted from within for 30 years during their most successful period at the club. Why did it ever go out of fashion? And if you think, let's say Dean Smith had stayed, got us into the Premiership, and then gone to Villa, and then, who's this Thomas Frank guy, So I think we've just got to trust the process. We knew Mbermo was going to go. We knew that was going to happen. Just about, trying to get the correct deal for it. I was a little bit shocked by Norgard, but, he deserves to be... bang at a top club.
And I think that's the mentality of a lot of Brentford fans, isn't it? We do understand, one, that we're a predominantly selling club, but we also appreciate players that have given us service that do, deserve the opportunity to play in some of these elite competitions.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, there's always a lot of, chat about who's going and who's coming, and until they've actually gone, I'm sort of like, well, let's just, because at one point the whole first 11 were out the door. And I'm thinking, well, we don't need to do that because, yes, we are Brentford. We're a small club and we have a second lowest budget in the Premiership. But we also, this season, finished 10th, which means the Premiership has obviously got so much money that you compare that to the rest of Europe. We're in the top 35 teams in Europe. So, we do have a little bit of clout. We do have, we should just believe in ourselves a little bit, and it's going to be okay. We're going to attract the right people. The setup at the club's right. It was always about that. Thomas Frank was amazing, but he was always the coach. He wasn't the manager. It wasn't all about him. So I'm feeling okay.
We've signed a good goalkeeper.
Yes,
Keller is a good goalkeeper. I think he'll prove to be a big success for you. I'm really, really confident of that.
Yeah, and we just got this kid from Feyenoord's just come in, and there'll be more signings, I'm sure. It'd be interesting to see what they do to replace Norgard. I think that'd be kind of...
That's a big one. That is a big one. But having said that, Norgard hasn't played every single game of last season, and you look at someone like Yarmouk, who's had a terrific end to the season. Janelt can fill in at time, has filled in for the Norgard role as well, and midfield doesn't look too bad. But you're right, it's just that sort of leadership perhaps that will be lacking from Norgard's departure. But as you say, as I say, we wish them all well because they've been brilliant. And the only sadness I have with some of these departures, Richard, is the fact that they're part of the team that got us up, and we're just losing more and more, really, aren't we? So that's the sadness of it. But equally,
you've been in the Premier League 5 years now, haven't you?
We're going to our 5th season. Yeah.
Well, that ain't bad.
No, absolutely. No, it's incredible that they've stuck around for as long as they have in that sense and been mainstays. But look, Richard, it's been a pleasure. So thank you, and best of luck with the re-release and the vinyl and everything, and look forward to seeing... is there a tour? Well, I should ask you quickly, is there a tour or anything?
We have done some dates, but they were last week.
Well, I'm sure people can find you, and I'm sure there'll be more to come as well. So thank you, Richard.
Cheers,
Thank
Richard.
you so much, guys.
Great to have you with us. Thank you. That's Richard Archer from Hardfire, and as he was saying there, they've had the re-release of Stars of CCTV, their iconic album that was released in 2005. Incredibly, God, it didn't feel that long ago. To look out for that. Vinyl editions as well they've re-released, which is pretty special. Right, we've already spoken about the Lionesses and how they got off to a losing start, unfortunately, at the Euros. That's the same for Wales, as they played in their first ever major tournament and won the end of a 3-0 defeat to the Netherlands. We'll review that game next.
Radio Brentford, Radio Brentford.
morning. You're tuning into the Weekend Sports Breakfast this Sunday morning on talkSPORT with a man who has... No, I'm not doing it because I just don't know if you've got more career goals than some of these people. So I'm not doing it. But it's Tony Cascarino.
Well, I might know the answer.
No, we've done it before. Fernando Torres and Didier Drogba combined.
No, nonsense.
See? You made me read it and it was wrong, and I knew it was wrong. He is alongside me, Natalie Sawyer. Here are some of your headlines for you today. At Silverstone, it's set to be an exciting British Grand Prix as Red Bull Max Verstappen pit McLaren's Oscar Piastri to pole position with the very last lap of qualifying. Burnley have announced the signing of England right-back Carl Walker after 8 seasons at Manchester City. And Wales lost their first game of the Euros 3-0 to the Netherlands in what is their first ever game at a major tournament. And afterwards, the Wales winger Fionn Morgan spoke to talkSPORT.
It's tough. We've got to work hard and we've got to suffer for a bit. We know that we're not going to have possession and we need to be comfortable with that. But when we do have the moments, we need to punish teams. And yeah, hopefully we can go back, learn and do that in the next games.
Yeah, a couple of games then for Wales to go in this group stage as they hope to make amends after that first defeat. They are bottom of the group after that 3-0 loss, and they have England and France to come, France being their next game. For more on this, we're now joined by the former Wales assistant coach and current West Ham boss, Rhian Skinner. Hello, Rhian, how are you?
Hi, Rhian.
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Very, very well.
Morning, Tony.
An interesting game for Wales, and considering that first half as well, they did so well defensively just up until pretty much half time when Vivian Miedema scored that goal.
Yeah, look, they were doing really well. I think there was a couple of instances, few warning shots when Jill Roord, Vivian Miedema were getting on the ball in the pockets just in front of the Wales defence, but it didn't amount to anything. And then obviously just they backed off too much, just diving in a little bit, and Miedema's just so good at manipulating defenders. So the goal was it was poor timing, but to be honest, I think the second goal was the one that was a bit of a killer because of how close it was after half time. It just kind of really stopped any positivity, that Wales would have had coming out at the second half, ready to apply themselves after some, tactics, some conversation, etc. I think that just made it a bit of an uphill struggle, to be honest.
Well, Rhian, we spoke yesterday and we always knew this was a terrible group for Wales, but a glorious opportunity to put in a performance, maybe get something along the way. And I came away from yesterday thinking, do you know what? If Wales can get a point on the board, something to take away from this group, because obviously France, as we saw last night, are exceptional. And we know that England won't be as poor as they were against France last night.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I was saying, I was obviously doing the commentary on the game. I said the same thing. I think they've targeted performances. They're the lowest ranked team in the competition. It's a tough ask. We know that. But also the group is winners of Euros, semi-finalists, like regularly. Teams, all three of these teams are tough opposition. So I think performance will create opportunities. I think getting a goal would be a massive boost of confidence because they've not won a game against a top 10 ranked team. And then, point out of something frustrating teams. I thought if they'd have got to half time last night, frustrating the Netherlands, it definitely would have been a boost that might have just carried them through. And to be fair, Tony, at the end as well, I thought the subs made a big difference. They were a little bit more aggressive, and so I thought there was more opportunities created. I know that they're 3-0 down by that point. Netherlands have took their foot off the gas a little bit, but still those are the windows to go and really try and push. So yeah, I think, if they can get a point out of it, I think that's, again, it's progress.
And put it into perspective, when you consider as a sort of a national side, they only came together in 1993, something like that. And when you consider how many international matches Wales have played, they've played fewer games than some of those international players in the Netherlands team, for example. So, we've got to put into perspective the incredible achievement simply to qualify. Obviously, it'd be great for them to come away with more positives, but just to put it into perspective, it's just incredible that they're at this tournament.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's been a lot of work put in behind the scenes. When I was working with Wales, there was a lot going on around the development of the pathway, the opportunities for young girls to play football, to increase the chances of developing the Welsh team and the amount of players available. And obviously there was additional sessions put in to try and upskill the players even more. And so all of those things play a huge part in trying to prepare for these tournaments. But you're right, last night, Sherry de Spietzer came on the pitch for the Netherlands, and I think it was her 245th cap for the Netherlands. I mean, that in itself for any player, is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, what country you play for, that is some achievement,
Yeah.
And that's probably, in terms of the combination of games, Wales wouldn't have played that many games, full stop. That's just not happened,
Well,
so, yeah.
I was going to add, Rihanna, that just it is France up next, but you would have watched, I'm sure, England playing France, and I'm sure the Wales players are going to embrace what they're going to face against France because they know they're a really good side, and these are the standards that are set.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think now the first one, and we spoke about it yesterday morning, you've got to expect a little bit of nerves and it's a bit overwhelming, isn't it, the first time in a major tournament? For as much as you want to obviously go and give it absolutely everything, there are still parts as a player where you step on the pitch and there's a little bit of an edge to what you're doing, but that's out of the way now. So actually, I just think that the thing that I thought England got wrong a little bit at times last night, I thought they were way too nice at times.
Yeah.
And I think Wales have got that real get up and go and that punch about them. And I think if they all deliver that will disrupt France a little bit more, and there's nothing to lose. They need to make sure that they go and fight and show what they're capable of, which is kind of a Wales mentality, So I'd like to think they'll do that in this next game.
Brilliant. Rhian, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will have plenty more on the way as we focus on the Lions next.
Cricket balls are red, baseballs are white, American footballs are brown, and tennis balls are yellow. We don't even think about it really, but the story behind the tennis ball is actually quite interesting and even involves Sir David Attenborough. I know. Well, here's the tale. Tennis is widely known to be a French sport. It dates back to the 12th century when people used handmade balls, and it was then called tennis, which is the verb to hold in French. And people used some pretty wacky material to make the balls with. Cork, wool, chalk, animal fur, and even human hair. A few centuries on, Germany got dead into the tennis too, but wanted to make a few modifications to the ball to make it a bit more effective. Around this time, an American chemist had just created something called vulcanized rubber. Out of that, people started developing air-filled rubber balls, which were properly bouncy, but either red or grey in colour. These were manufactured in Melton Mowbray. That's right, the home of the pork pie. One problem, the balls kept on breaking on impact with the racket. The call of new balls please seemingly coming over every other point. Step forward English lawyer and tennis enthusiast John Moyer Heathcote, who suggested balls be covered in flannel to stop them from degrading. And thus the modern-day tennis ball was born. But these were white or black, so how did they become yellow? Well, in 1967, the controller of BBC Two, one Sir David Attenborough, decided the corporation should show Wimbledon on colour TV. He got his wish, and it was wide into people's homes across the country. The only sticking point, the white balls were nearly impossible to see on the screen. So the International Tennis Federation, sensing an opportunity, started developing a new ball that would be visible even without the need for 4K LED displays. Not that anyone had that in the late 60s. After rigorous testing, they came up with the colour optic yellow and decided every ball be coated in that colour from there on in. And there you have it. Tennis balls are yellow, all because Sir David Attenborough wanted to watch Wimbledon from the comfort of his own front room. You could say the ITF aced it.
Good morning, this is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. Pleasure to have your company with us. I'm Natalie Sawyer, and with me it's the former Gillingham and Millwall striker, Tony Cascarino.
Good morning.
Oh, the Lionesses didn't get off to a great start, did they, in the defence of their Euros crown? There is work to do for Sarina Wiegman and the Lionesses.
Is this it for England? It is. The game is over, and England's title defence begins with a damaging defeat in Zurich, and arguably their worst major tournament display under Sarina Wiegman. The road to more Euros glory has just got much, much tougher.
Well, from the women's football team to the England men's cricket team, and they have lost key wickets of Ben Duckett, Zach Crawley and Joe Root. So can they get anything out of day 5 against India at Edgbaston? Sam Ellard.
Well, England have it all to do on day 5, resuming 72 for 3. The target for victory is 608 runs. That is unlikely even by Bazball standards. Pope and Brook will resume this morning at 11 o'clock on 72 for 3. 536 runs to win for England, but the key number for India, 7 wickets for them to win this match and level the series.
And Sam will have live reports on day 5 when play gets underway from 11. Also this morning we've been asking for your most ridiculous fine story. You can send us a voice note on WhatsApp, which David has done this morning.
Good morning, Natalie and Tony. I actually got fined many years ago in my first Mini for not having a horn. I was a young lad driving a red Mini. The policeman pulled me over, checked everything to see if he could pull me up for something. And at the last minute he said, sound your horn. It didn't work and I got fined, and I went to court just for the pleasure of seeing what they'd say. And everybody in the court couldn't believe while I was there.
It's extraordinary. I've not heard that before, David. Thank you for sharing that story. Keep them coming in. We're with you until 10. 81089 is the text number. The WhatsApp is 03717 223344. Can you beat being fined for not having a horn on your car? I love that. There we go. Right, the British and Irish Lions made it 3 wins out of 3 on Australian soil after their victory over the Waratahs. So it's time for us to get an update on the rugby in partnership with Tenor Men.
Qatar Airways Lions Tour Roundup on talkSPORT with coverage sponsored by Tenor Men. From protected pads and pants to reusable boxers, stay in control with Tenor Men. Keep control.
A
warm welcome. Special mention to our visitors from overseas. Enjoy the night, Nandawabi.
We are underway then. And it is the Lions kicking off. Now they have to use it. He's going to go to Tui Palazzo. Lovely ball to Jones on his shoulder. Hugh Jones will score. Pass down the left-hand side. Great opportunity for Lancaster. He's not going to be held in the tackle. If you don't know, a Waratah is a flower. They're going forward there, the Waratahs, and they've scored again. Second try for the Waratahs. We get into the business part of this one, folks. He will offload to Mitchell. They feint right, go left. Alex Mitchell with another feint and scores the try. Penny's just dropped on it. He's going to have to pick a player of the match from this one. And it's not going to be the easiest of calls. 3 games played on Australian soil, 3 wins on Australian soil for the British and Irish Lions. They win 21-10.
Every day is a school day. A Waratah is a flower. I had no idea. Love that. Okay, let's talk more about the Lions then, and also Australia, because they were in overnight action. Delighted to say joining us, it is the Australian legend that is David Campese. David, how are you?
Hi, David.
Natalie, Tony, how you going?
Yeah,
very
good, thanks.
well, very, very well.
I think that horn joke was very interesting.
Well, I was going to say, David, you get loads of fines like we get in England for parking and speeding. Some of them, honestly, are quite ridiculous.
Well, it was interesting because after the Lions 89, when I threw that pass and lost the series, and I drove home and got pulled over for speeding. So there we go.
Oh,
no. I thought the game was bad enough.
I was going to say, it goes from bad to worse for you, David. Dear. Right, let's talk first of all about the Lions, shall we? I know Australia beat Fiji, as I say, overnight. I mean, it was a late victory that they got in that one, the late try. But starting with the Lions, 3 wins out of 3 in Australia following that defeat to Argentina. But they still haven't looked entirely convincing. Is that the impression you've also been given when you're watching them?
Yeah, look, I think it's always difficult. People don't realise, you've got 4 countries in one. And some of these guys haven't played for a while. And you can just see the first 2 games, it took a while to get into the game, which they did very well. The combinations worked. But on Saturday night against the Waratahs, it just seemed that they were trying to push the ball too much. And I think it's like the pressure's on now. And I think the pressure's on a lot of the players. Now, Daddy's called Owen Farrell over the team, sorry. You can see Marcus Smith was panicking on Saturday. His chance to play, but he had to perform. And little things like that put a lot of pressure on players. And there was a lot of mistakes. I mean, that's really rare to see the amount of ball that they dropped. The Waratahs obviously weren't that great. Well, I think they were probably the 8th or 9th team in the Super Rugby. But, they didn't give up. And I think that the Lions, the first 2 weeks, did very well. 50 points is fantastic. But I think, again, sometimes when you expect to win, you just go out there and you just go through the motions. And, you talked about the England, the women's soccer team. Sometimes you should win. And you go out there thinking, we'll just do the normal things. But sometimes the opposition, which I've always said in my life, is that the opposition only let you play as well as they want you to play. So if they turn up, you've got to turn up. And they didn't really turn up on Saturday night, the Lions.
No, and a lot of the criticism here in the paper certainly is that the Lions have been very sloppy. And that's something you touched on already, David. You sort of think that will be ironed out by the time they face Australia.
Yeah, look, I think, it's the game. I played most of my life in the amateur era, and it was very, very different. We had different coaches. You could do different things, and players, if you had a bit of flair, you go and do things. Now you can see it's so structured. And unfortunately, when we were professional 96, we went to rugby league, which is big in Australia and England a bit. So we got those guys because they're professional. But if you have a look at the game now, it's a very structured game where they hit up, there's space around, or they kick the ball away. The first 2 games, the Force and the Reds, they were down by 40 points and they kept on kicking the ball away. And I said, guys, you cannot win a game of football, rugby, if you haven't got the ball. So why kick it? Because that's all they know. They're not prepared to try different things. Like we talked about Fiji. Fiji gave the Wallabies a bit of a scare this afternoon. And some of the tries the Fijians scored were unbelievable because they backed themselves. They've got the skills. They want to entertain. And I know the Lions are out here to win. I can understand, but there is a lot of pressure on the players to perform. because you've got another 2 or 3 games, then you've got the test matches. And there's 3 test matches in a row, so there's no games in between. And that's going to be where, if you make the first team, you'll probably make the second and third.
Well, how much pressure is there then on Australia and Joe Schmidt?
Look, I think there's a lot of pressure because we've lost our way a bit. And I've been very vocal for years. You know, we used to have one of the world's greatest backlines. We had the flair, we had the players, we used to counter-attack. Fiji did that today against Australia, scored some great tries. But we have got more of individuals. We've got a lot of really good individuals, but they don't really act as a team. If you look at the Lions backline, you know, you had guys like Brian O'Driscoll. You know, when he had the ball, something was going to happen. He was one of those players that created opportunities. And that's where I think the Lions at the moment, you know, missing Daly, I thought was a big blow. He's a great player. Playing fullback and 13 and wing, and then you bring a number 10 over. So the pressure's on the 10s. When really, if you lose a Kinghorn or Keenan, the fullback, there's no other fullbacks. Smith goes in, but Smith's not a fullback. So you basically put yourself in a bit of a corner. You know, and that's what I mean. The players now realise it's getting close. If you don't sort of deliver, you're not going to be in the test team.
Would you think that's one of the reasons why Andy Farrell's called in? You mentioned 10s, you know, puts a lot of pressure on the 10s. That's why he's brought in Owen.
Well, yes. I actually predicted this before the tour was picked, the team, and I said he's going to pick him because, you know, I mean, he's going to do what his daddy will tell him to do. He's one of those players. He's a bloody good player, but the problem is, you've got Finn Russell, who's a very flair player, totally different player to Owen. Owen's up and down. He'll do the right things where Finn Russell wants to try different things. He goes to the line. He puts guys through gaps. He's got a really good vision for the game, and that's what we need at the moment. We need, especially in Australia, we need players to entertain the crowds because we've got Rugby League and Aussie Rules which dominate out here. And the Lions series is going to be hopefully a bit of momentum for us to go forward to the next World Cup in 27. We need players like that. We need individuals who can try and run the ball from one side of the field, one line to the other line, like Fiji did today. And the crowd just absolutely love that. You know, we've got into that stereotype of it's all about defence instead of attack.
I mean, is there also an element with the Owen Farrell call-up? I mean, in a way, you sort of think, why was he not called up originally? I know there's been injuries, etc., but he brings a bit of a leadership as well in this squad that is relatively inexperienced when it comes to the Lions.
Yes, it is. But when you join the tour late, the guys have already got a bit of a custom. You know, you're all out there. You played 2 games. You all know each other. Someone comes in. Again, I don't know what sort of character he is, but you know, will that put pressure on in Russell?
Yeah.
Is he going to be the number 10 now? And who's going to be the goal kicker? You know, they're just little things like that make a big difference in the team. That's, you know, they've done well the first couple of games last night. Yes, you won. But again, you want to win convincingly. And I'm very fortunate that we actually got the ITV commentary out here. And it was great to listen to the guys actually talk about the game, how it is. You know, we've got the commentators out here. Australia did nothing wrong. So it's really good to hear their take on the game. And, you know, they give you exactly what's happening. You can see what's happening. And you got a guy called Morgan. I think he had a shocker before he got the first game. The second, absolutely killed him. Those players they're the ones you want in the team because they're hungry to be in the team.
Yeah.
If you just go through the motions all the time, you know, again, you just mentioned the women's, the Lions soccer. They just probably went through the motions thinking this is easy. You can't do that in rugby now. You know, this is a massive tour for us. It's a massive tour for you guys. And you know, the Six Nations, the people that are watching this game at, you know, this tour because, you know, the Southern Hemisphere's dominated Rugby World Cups. You know, you guys have won one. The Southern Hemisphere's won everyone else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just finally then, from what you've seen of late of both the Lions and Australia, I'm sure you've been asked this many times, David, but how are you calling this series then?
Well, I do. I love geeing you guys up. You know that. I was born in the 70s. You know, the cricket. You know, the boycotts, the
sledging,
all the sledging. so my first.
You're good at it. You're good at it, David.
That's exactly. True. Well, Planet Rugby was my first home. I said, after the game, I said, you know, I said Australia's going to win 3-0. or Lions going to 3-0. I'll change my mind every time. Look, I just hope it's good. It's a good. We need good rugby. I'm coaching rugby at the moment, the under-13s at the school, and no one watches rugby.
Yeah.
We haven't got any idols. No one knows the history or culture of our country, which is really sad. And that's why we're trying to get involved, and that's why this series is very important for us to actually get everyone to understand. Rugby is not a bad game. We've got Aussie rules, gets 100,000 to a grand final. You've got rugby league, but rugby is an international sport, but we're just not entertaining properly to get the crowds to come and watch.
Well, David, it's always great to hear you on talkSPORT. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Cheers, David.
You're welcome.
Great to have.
Make sure your horns work, eh?
Indeed. I'll be going home and doing that first thing. David Campese, thank you very much. That was a discussion on the Lions, all thanks to Tenor Men.
Qatar Airways Lions Tour Roundup on talkSPORT with coverage sponsored by Tenor Men. From protected pads and pants to reusable boxers, stay in control with Tenor Men. Keep control.
He plays that villain role very well now. It's crying out for a little bit more attention. It comes with a lot of crazy people. I took it personally and it kind of made me rebel a bit more. To be honest, I don't really care anymore. I'm never going to change.
Into the Weekend Sports Breakfast here on talkSPORT. We're live on your radio, YouTube and smart TV as well. It is Crockenhill's, maybe Bromley's finest export, Tony Cascarino. No, we're not questioning that one.
Finest export?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't go there. I'm
Average.
sure. I think even David Bowie might come under Bromley because I think in Beckenham he was born.
Okay.
Which is sort of Bromley, London.
You know,
Borough.
I love you, Cass, but I think he's going to top.
No, I think so, just slightly.
Okay. just someone that came from somewhere in London then. Tony Cascarino, who's alongside me, Natalie Sawyer. We're with you until the Sunday edition at 10. Pleased to say, joining us in the studio to talk all things transfers is Anil Kandola. How are you, Anil?
A very good morning to you both. Yeah, I'm very well, like I was saying to you just before we went back on air. The mornings are quite difficult, so my hats go off to you, but Per, certainly for always flying the flag quite high for us talkSPORT employees.
So how hard for you is it to get up in the morning then?
I'm really not a morning person. I think I'm someone who would rather go sleep at 5 a.m. rather than wake up at 5 a.m. But we're here now, aren't we?
Well, listen, and soon enough your day will be over and you can enjoy yourself. So exactly, that's the main thing. So look, we've already spoken about some transfer stories, but you're going to bring us a few more that we didn't get to speak about. Newcastle, it seems as though they were once linked with Brian Mbeumo. That has gone away, and now maybe they're viewing another Premier League player that they want to bring in.
Yeah, exactly. It's been, I think, quite a difficult time for Eddie Howe during this summer transfer window. Of course, a lot of optimism amongst the Newcastle fans that PSR rules were not as intense, shall we say, as they have been in previous years. But yes, Nottingham Forest winger Anthony Elanga is at the top of the list for Newcastle at the moment. We understood over the weekend, just before we got into the weekend, that a £55 million bid potentially has been put forward. There's been no agreement of sort, but negotiations are positive, and we expect this one to really ramp up in the next few days. So, considering the fact that Nottingham Forest, signed him for, I think it was around £15 million from Manchester United, to go on to now what he's achieved is a really, really incredible achievement already. But I just wanted to ask you, in terms of Eddie Howe, in terms of potential new signings, what is the aspiration for Newcastle next season? Of course, as we've said, it looks like they're going to spend a bit of money, been in the Champions League now for 1 or 2 seasons. So what would be deemed as a successful season for the Geordies?
Well, again, if it's repeat, isn't it? They're on repeat. I mean, when they qualified for the Champions League after they had a couple of seasons for the first time, when they had relegation battles. Newcastle are a long way from that now. And if you're talking Anthony Elanga, you're talking, Jacob Murphy, Anthony Elanga, fighting for the right-hand spot. Then on the left side, you've got Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon. That's a really, really good wide area of players who can make a difference. Pace and goals, chip in with what they're capable of. Would they add a bit more with Isak if they can keep him, and then add another striker in there? Newcastle got great midfield. There's a lot of good things happening in Newcastle under Eddie Howe. So for me, it would be continual Champions League football if they can make that. Because if they don't get it next year, it'd feel like a failure. Which seems a strange conversation from where we were, 2.5, 3 years ago?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, obviously, with the new format of the Champions League, which I'm sure we're all still getting to grips with, to get out of the first phase would be massive for them. And we all know what happened last time. They did have a difficult group, but they took it to the last game of that group, didn't they? And then just missed out. So I think, to go again, as you say, in the Premier League, to finish in a potential Champions League place will be massive. But I think just to enjoy the Champions League experience once more, a lot of those fans are going to love that, certainly. Okay, Anthony Elanga might be moving on, but it doesn't mean Forest aren't looking to bolster in their ranks too.
No, they've never been a shy club, shall we say, of making some new additions to join the project. And what an exciting project that is, by the way. First time in a very long time they're going to be enjoying some European football. And an individual that goes by the name of Igor Jesus is going to be joining from Botafogo. Exactly, a hard name to live up to, isn't it? For around 10 million. And I've done a bit of research. I've heard Tim Vickery, a South American football expert who knows all of his stuff and then some. He has described him as the modern day Didier Drogba. Ooh. So a real big bar to reach for this individual. But yeah, another exciting player. And we look at the players that Nottingham Forest have brought in a couple of years. Okay, not all of them have worked out, but in terms of a majority, they've all hit the ground running. They all seem to be really enjoying the project and the philosophy that's going on there. So yeah, hopefully anyway for Nottingham Forest fans, a very exciting addition.
Yeah, they've already got a Wanye and Chris Wood, haven't they, as that leading the line. So it's adding a third one. Yeah.
But I guess, again, with European football, you have to think about that, don't you?
Yeah, of course,
I mean, Wanye had his injury problems, didn't he, last season? So something to just factor in. And if you were watching the Club World Cup, you would have seen little... if you watched the Botafogo games, you would have seen him in action. So I did see a lot of Forest fans actually just so excited from what they've just seen from that, of what he might bring to the Premier League as well, which is great. Interesting. Again, if you're watching the Club World Cup, it wasn't announced Well, it was announced, but before that, you saw Jamie Gittins, didn't we, on the pitch?
Yes.
After, I forget which game it was. And we knew that Chelsea were pursuing him for some time. So tell us a little bit more about the deal that's all done and dusted now.
Yes, a deal that has reached a whopping 48.5 million. That's without any add-ons. A 7-year deal at Stamford Bridge for Jamie Gittins, a left winger, another winger at Stamford Bridge. I think this really does highlight the modern day transfer window and the transfer policy that we're in now. Teams like Chelsea, who can be considered as one as the biggest in the world, of course, they're at the Club World Cup, so that does warrant you to have a very special title, doesn't it? But of course, as we've heard links as well with Madueke, these players are signed, and maybe they have got this interest and this idea that we could be a selling club. It's not necessarily to sign these players on 7-year deals to really see the pomp of their careers, but also if they can reach a certain level, we can sell them on for even more money. So I think we are going to be entering a new era, especially the way that Chelsea's spending money. But Gittins, yes, he's been highly admired from Chelsea, from what I'm hearing, for quite some time, and this will be a very exciting addition, and hopefully anyway for him that he can really blossom at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, okay. And another club who we spoke about earlier on, Arsenal, that we're still waiting really for these signings to come through, although Harry Symeou, who joined us earlier, was saying, look, you know, oh my goodness, who's the midfielder? Not Norgard. Zubimendi,
the new one. Yeah. All of our minds went a little bit blank there, wasn't it?
It's the Morning Star,
It's the Morning Stars, yeah.
Thank you, Gab, our producer. He was hot on it. He was saying they are done, pretty much done, and maybe it's next week that they'll both be announced. But there's also suggestions that maybe someone like a Gabriel Martinelli might be moving on.
Yeah, this over the last few days has been one of the highest stories in terms of views on talkSPORT.com in terms of Martinelli. There's been some interest we're hearing from Al Nassr, of course, Ronaldo's team in Saudi Arabia. They're still chasing their first league title since 2019, and they're looking to spend big. There was reports over the weekend, as I've said, in terms of a potential bid going in at a whopping 73 million. And just to put that into perspective, Arsenal's highest ever sale was Oxlade-Chamberlain at 35 million.
Wow.
So
that's a great question. I wouldn't have got that. I wouldn't have got that answer.
A good pub question for you there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, if you put that into perspective, a club like Arsenal should of course be making a little bit more money than that. But yeah, they could potentially be seeing even double than that. But I think what the really interesting angle is this, not necessarily just Martinelli potentially leaving, but some of the names they've been linked with in that left-hand position. We've heard Rodrigo over the last couple of weeks, and also we understand that Anthony Gordon is another individual that's very admired at the powers that be at the Emirates. So this could potentially really spark almost like a domino effect, some big spending for Arsenal. And of course, as you've said, we've already heard from Harry Symeou and a lot of Arsenal fans over the last few weeks. They're in desperate need, especially in that forward line, for some reinforcements. So it does seem that we are going to be entering a very busy week coming up now in the transfer window, but whatever happens, we'll of course be right across it here on talkSPORT.
We certainly will.
Great stuff. Have I got time for a quick question?
Or can I just... What's it in relation to?
Poker.
Or can I just quickly mention the Martinelli?
Oh, go on.
Like, how much wage... What would his wage bill be? What is it that Ronaldo recently signed? Like £400,000 a week? No, it's more than that.
Probably a day. Yeah.
No, it wasn't a day.
I think it was probably closer to a day than a week, considering that
I know it wasn't for, and it clearly wasn't. As I said, I thought that's not right, but it was just ridiculous.
Well, I think if you include everything he's earning, and then there's his additional bonuses,
how do you even begin a discussion, negotiation?
I don't know. I
just don't understand it. I can't comprehend it.
You know, it's not. For my first contract, I was arguing over £5.
Yeah,
honestly, Gillingham offered me 100, and I was wanting 105. Honestly, this is 1981 when I first started.
Right.
It's just crazy.
You're right. You might be right. It's actually, I've got that obviously hideously wrong. I think they're saying it's now about 3 million a week.
Yeah. Not too bad, is it? Bit of an improvement from £105 a week, isn't it?
Right. You got the Ace of Spades tattoo.
Yes.
Oh,
so, can you tell me a story? Is it related to poker? Is it Ace and a King? Ace King.
Yeah. I have a quote that says, "Life is a game played to win." So that's one of my mantras in life.
Why is it not a pair of aces then? Ace King. I'd rather have aces than...
I wasn't prepared for this. at all. I'll try and think of it, and hopefully I can join you next week and I'll give you a good answer. But unfortunately, I don't actually have one.
To be fair, they're still two good cards.
Yeah, exactly.
No, they're great cards.
You'd be happy with
but
that.
But not as good as two aces.
Well, okay, I've thought of one very quickly. So it's an ace, an A for an ace, and a K for a king. My initials are AK, so there we go.
Oh, okay.
Look at that.
Okay.
That was the real story. We'll go with that.
You have done well if you've just come up with that. That's pretty good. Look at you. You're always seeking out stars. Yeah.
I'm watching that. Be careful.
You are. All right, Anil, thank you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the show. Brilliant as always, guys.
Thank you. On the way next, we're going to talk boxing. A really interesting exclusive Daniel Dubois has given to the Sunday Times journalist Tom Kershaw, and Tom joins us next. This is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. It is the former Gillingham striker Tony Cascarino who is alongside me, Natalie Sawyer, and we're with you until 10. And I know you all are aware now that Oasis kicked off their long-awaited tour in Cardiff on Friday, and we are giving you a chance to win a pair of Oasis tickets in Manchester on July the 19th. It is sold out, this tour, but we can get you in. But the competition ends tomorrow, so you don't have long to enter. That is not all. Alongside those tickets, we'll put you up for a night in a hotel and give you $5,000 as well, completely tax-free. How do you enter? Well, listen up.
All right, our kids, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, for the chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay and $5,000 spending money. Text the word Oasis to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 AGP to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. Good luck, yeah? Sorted.
Best of luck for that. Right, let's turn our attentions now to boxing. Huge fight coming up next weekend at Wembley, where Daniel Dubois will be in action. He's given an exclusive interview to the Sunday Times magazine then ahead of the biggest fight of his life, with this clash against Alexander Usyk that could make him the undisputed champion of the world. In this feature then, Dubois, alongside his father, Stanley, and trainer Don Charles, at their gym in Hertfordshire, reflect on Dubois' journey from a humble upbringing in Deptford to the top of the boxing world. I'm pleased to say joining us this morning to reflect upon this is the man who spoke to Daniel Dubois from the Sunday Times magazine. It's Tom Kershaw. Tom, good morning. How are
Tom.
You?
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being with us this morning. And both Cass and I have been reading through this article, and it's really interesting because it's a real exploration of kind of the spiritual side, I'd say, of Daniel Dubois and his family.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating upbringing, and sort of unlike anything I've really known in sport. There's obviously a lot of kind of father-son dynamics, especially in boxing, but Stanley was never a boxer himself, and sort of says that he has this spiritual vision essentially before Daniel was even born, that he was going to be a world champion, and his entire life essentially from that point onwards has been framed around that, whether it's meant doing press-ups in the living room of their council estate when he was 5 years old for hours on end, and having his first fights when he's 7, 8 years old. It's an incredible amount of discipline, certainly a different way of life, but it obviously has been extremely successful.
Yeah, it's interesting, Tom, in a manner, because his father Stanley, who was obviously a staunch Christian, a father of 11 children, 2 marriages, but he talks about the training methods, and like you said, before school he'd be doing press-ups and all different exercises, but he didn't see it as a punishment. He saw it as a sort of a habit of just being prepared for the day ahead, and his life in a lot longer way, in the manner of the things that face you in life to be ready for.
Yes, he was homeschooled, so and I think he obviously did have a tutor come in and out of the home, but it was essentially everything revolved around boxing. And Daniel has always stressed to me, and every time I've spoken to him, that he wanted to do this, he enjoyed doing this, so he wasn't being forced to do it. But it is obviously somewhat of my willpower might have broken when you're spending hours and hours doing sit-ups at 5 and 6 years old. It's hard to fathom, really, and he does have these quite sort of vivid scars on his knuckles because he did them on a closed fist. But Stanley didn't want them to go into school. He was worried about the kids' safety. He thought that obviously growing up in Deptford, that he didn't want them to sort of run into the wrong crowd. He's very protective of them. And as he's said, his plan worked, and his son is a multi-millionaire and can look after all of the family now, and loves what he does. So.
It's quite incredible. These are the sort of stories you don't really hear about as much as we'd love, because it really does give you the
insight.
Sort of, the insight, and opens your eyes to something we know nothing about. So tell us then. I mean, he's on the cusp potentially of an incredible, glorious moment if he was to beat Usyk at Wembley. How was he feeling when you spoke to him about that fight?
He seemed about as confident as I've ever seen him. I've sort of covered him quite a bit over the years, and I think since the Anthony Joshua fight, he's sort of come out of his shell quite a lot more in terms of, he speaks more openly. He's got a bit sort of more of he used to sometimes at press conferences clam up a little bit. He's obviously in his elements at the gym, but he looked in great shape. He said he felt great. The coaching team around him said this is as good as they've ever seen him. And obviously everyone will tell you that in boxing when you go into the gym, but I found it quite believable. He seemed happy. Before other fights he's maybe looked a bit more anxious. He seemed very calm and felt like this is his moment.
Well, the thing is, Tom, he fought Usyk a few years back and lost, but a lot of people would make the argument He probably wasn't ready for Usyk then. So he's probably ready now after, like you said, AJ, beating AJ the way he did. So we're now seeing, and he's still relatively young for a heavyweight as well. You know, heavyweights can mature around 30. Yeah, he's 27 years old. So it feels like it's all coming together. But he's facing a man that's never been beaten as a heavyweight.
Yeah, I mean, conceivably, he could have another 10 years at the top if he wanted to. So you're right, he's very young. But I do, there's obviously a lot of debate about the first fight in terms of the low blow. Obviously, a lot's been made about that in the build-up to this fight. Usyk is a brilliant fighter, the best heavyweight of this generation, without a doubt. But he's 38. Fury obviously pushed him close both times. Daniel is getting better. He's come through those. There was obviously a lot of criticism early on in his career about his sort of mental strength, and he took a knee against Usyk in the first fight and against Joe Joyce. But he sort of had two really trying fights before the Joshua one, and it seems like that what was perceived as a sort of glaring weakness has been reinforced. And I think it could be a close fight. Usyk is clearly more talented and is most talented heavyweight by far, but age is catching up with him. Dubois is a lot bigger. He's got great fundamentals, and I wouldn't be shocked if he were to do it.
Wow, it's all really fascinating, Tom. Appreciate you being with us this morning. Thank you.
Cheers, Tom.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you. You
can read more then about this insight into Daniel Dubois. It's in that Sunday Times magazine, it's kind of tagged with instead of school I did press-ups while reciting the Bible. Really, really interesting. And also what's interesting is he talks about how his dad used to play old videos of old heavyweights.
Yeah.
And particularly they used to love watching Lennox Lewis, as we all know.
Well, he was the icon for a lot of British fighters.
Of course, what he went on to achieve.
Lennox was so good. Even the people that... Lennox lost to a couple of fighters and he beat them in the returns. No, Lennox was that quality. I mean, I look back and think of Lewis, and he was for a long period nearly unbeatable, and yet he'd lost a couple of fights, but redemption time come for him because he always beat the people that beat him. Yeah, and of course he was an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Absolutely. At that point, it was the 3 belts. Now there's 4 up for grabs, but it's going to be interesting to see how it works. And staged at Wembley, the home support. It's all going to be interesting for Daniel Dubois. It's going to be a big night. And I think Daniel Dubois has got a great chance. Even as someone as good as Usyk, and yes, he's 38, still think he's got a great chance of doing it. Yeah. Yeah, very much so. I'm just trying to see if we've had loads of messages about ridiculous fines. Where was it? I was once, this is quite good. This is from Simon in Kidderminster. He says, I once had a fine for driving through a red light at some traffic lights. I mean, obviously that's not good, Simon. But he explains all. The thing is, at the time I was driving the Birmingham City team coach and we were having a police escort to the Ipswich game. I mean, ridiculous. Hopefully didn't have to pay it as a result. Where else? We've got Castlelight, this one. Parked in Petswood. Yes, Petswood, very well. To go for the post office, but they'd removed the meters. Went into the shop downloading an update on Ringo, and in the 3 minutes between arriving, leaving and still not downloaded, I got a ticket. 100 quid. Appealed, said I explained to the warden what happened, but was rejected as I hadn't paid even after I'd been issued a ticket. I mean, why would you? If you've been issued a ticket, you're not going to go, well, I'll pay for it now. I'll pay for my parking. There seems to be, sometimes with the fines, what I find frustrating is there's no leeway at all. I know. And that's the frustration. So you're telling me of all the fines you give out, and there's now hundreds of thousands of them all around the country on a daily basis, there are some people who've got a legitimate case of why they shouldn't be fined. But it seems to be ignored. And that's why I hate the black and white argument where you just go, no, it's this and that's it. There's no debate. Well, but you know what? It's a money earner. Yeah. That's what it is at the end of the day, isn't it? Bobby says, in Dublin, my wife pulled in to let her 90-year-old nan, maybe, out to get to the credit union, double parked, didn't even stop the engine, and got an €80 fine in the post. No ticket, no warning to move, 2 minutes to stop and help an old person. Tried to appeal. No, weren't allowed to appeal that one. Again, no compassion, unfortunately, at the end of the day. Oh, it's the world we live in. I mean, I think there used to be a time where there might have been compassion. Yeah, and just a bit of common sense around certain... You knew when someone was pulling the wool over your eyes. You know that as someone, you'd go, do you know what? you're taking the mickey. That's too far.
Yeah.
You're going to fine you. I'm not going to let you off. But there was a period in time, even with your driving, where someone would pull you over and say, you're going a tad too fast. Be careful.
Well.
And not say a slap on the wrist, but just be careful about whatever you're doing. You know, that doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't, certainly. And the problem is as well, you get like with the parking wardens, and look, that's their job. I understand that is their job. So I'm never going to be angry, although you're going to be disappointed if you do get a fine. But it's that whole thing of I've put it in now. Sorry, can't do anything about it. I've already entered it into the system. Sorry, and you think, and stop typing. You don't need to enter it, type thing. But anyway, right, okay, keep them coming into us. We're with you until 10. On the way next, a little bit of Natalie Sawyer. Good morning. This is the Weekend Sports Breakfast. Thank you very much for being with us this Sunday morning. It's the former Marseille and Nancy striker, Tony Cascarino, who is with me, Natalie Sawyer, and we're with you up until 10. Then you've got the Sunday edition with Sean Custis and Henry Winter to look forward to. You all right?
Yeah.
Just to clear something up, I know this answer, but someone's been in touch to say, is Tony related to the French ladies striker? She has a similar swagger.
She was terrific last night. Yeah, they're sisters. I told you before. There's
sisters,
two of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, I've asked this question. They've been asked this question. You know, they've been interviewed, in interviews,
who?
And the former Marseille striker,
of course.
And they've gone, no, we've been asked this question a number of times with nothing to do.
Because it's such a unique name, isn't it?
I had Rocco, okay, I'm in Stevenage Hospital with Joe, and the woman that delivered Rocco was Emma Cascarino.
Stop.
Emma Cascarino. Didn't say a word. All the way through, because obviously you meet, you speak, and blah, blah, blah. And afterwards she said, I'm Emma Cascarino, and she was from the Midlands.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I knew there were some Cascarinos that I thought I was related to, because there was about 7 different families at the particular time, so I'm going back a few years. But, it's interesting, because it is a strange name, yeah.
Of all the midwives.
Yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah, it's mad.
That's crazy.
Because nothing was said, and they said, Emma, I'm Emma Cascarino, and I thought it was a joke. No, I'm Emma Cascarino.
Was Joe looking at you thinking, who's this? Who's this now?
It's my second.
Can you imagine? Oh, my goodness.
No, but, yeah. No, I'd tell you what, I'd love her to be, some sort of relation in some.
I know, yeah.
Probably earning more than me now than I ever earned.
But it's such a unique name that it's inevitable that people might think there's a connection.
It's quite common in the Monte Cassino area, which is in between Naples and Paris, Naples and Rome. that is quite a common name at that particular area.
Okay, right. There we go. Thank you very much. We've been talking about the ridiculous fines that you have got. Loads of you have been getting in touch. John, for example, just messaged in, says, I collected some keys from a letting agent, parked in the bay, didn't bother buying a ticket. 2 minutes later, I returned to my car. Traffic warden was writing out a ticket. I ran and jumped in my car, drove off. The traffic warden got on his bike, chased after me, shouting at me that I'd get the ticket in the post. The ticket never arrived. Yeah, yes, smarted it somehow, John. I like it. And this one says, I got a £60 parking ticket at B&Q in the middle of nowhere in Warrington on a Sunday morning between 7:50 and 8:25 a.m. They only open at 10 a.m. on Sundays. I haven't spent a penny at B&Q for over a year and never will.
Oh, you get like that, don't you?
Bitter.
Yeah. Well, the supermarkets now are going hard and fast, aren't they, on their parking?
It's mad, isn't it? Yeah, there's a new Lidl that's opened in Brentford, I must say. And you have to register your car after you've paid. But a lot of people might not really register because they're only little sort of iPad-y things. Yeah. And I had to explain it to my mum because she's of a certain age, and she was freaking out about it, you know. But if you don't spot it, if you're not really aware that you need to, there's no massive sign that says you've got to register your parking. Who knows how many people have been fined as a result?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right, as I was saying, loads of ridiculous fine stories, and you could have sent us a voice note if you so wished, and that's what Warren has done.
Good morning. I've recently started taxi driving. I was doing it for around an 8-week period, and in that time I got 6 tickets. I got 2 for parking on a car while in a little driveway by where I live. I got 2 at the airport, and then I had 2 for going in bus lanes.
Oh, jeez, that's a mental.
Oh, dear.
No.
Poor lad.
Oh, dear.
Oh,
I mean, that's when you just got to go, I'll give up.
Maybe this job's not for me.
Yes, I know. Oh, bless you, Warren. Thank you for sharing your story, though. We have had some more before we get to Natalie Sawyer. It's just trying to read them as we go. Beat this for a random fine. I hope this is good when I read it. Okay. I'm trying to make sure there's nothing dodgy in it. All right. I was in the Royal Navy in charge of the catering on board a submarine, the HMS Vigilant. At the end of every patrol, lasting up to 4 months, we would hand over any leftover food stores to our opposite crew. I had a long-running feud with a guy who inspected us to ensure we complied with the rules. Imagine Blaking from the buses even. He's that guy. Now, when we returned, he checked our stock and found some dried herbs out of date. The value of the out-of-date herbs was approximately 45. I think that might be pounds, but I'm not sure. So my fine was 500. Thank you. No appeal, no discussion, straight out of my pay account, which was 25% of my monthly wage.
Oh, that's a lot. That's
That is
harsh.
ridiculous. 500.
500, yeah.
And you can't even appeal that. Oh, you'd be gutted. Absolutely gutted. Right, it's time for a bit of this. Stats. Expected goals. Possession in the final third. Clean sheets, yellow or red cards, shots on target.
Shots on target.
These aren't just any stats. These are Natalie Sawyer stats.
It does make me laugh, this bit.
Well, normally we play it on a Saturday, but we had to save it for today because I wasn't in yesterday. So here is just a couple of things that we've picked out with a question to come off the back. So we spoke about Chelsea earlier, and potentially a player who could be on their way out is Nicholas Jackson. In all competitions, Chelsea have won 12 of their last 14. The 2 losses came when Jackson was sent off versus both Newcastle and Flamengo in the Club World Cup. He's sort of had it's not been a terrible career at Chelsea, we must say.
No, not at all.
But he's perhaps just not been as consistent. So do you believe it is time for him to move on? Or do Chelsea need to keep him as maybe a backup for Liam Delap?
I'd want to keep him for another season because he's still relatively young. Is he 23 now, Nicholas Jackson? And I think he needs competition around him, whether it's Delap and maybe even another. I would really want to just go one more because I think there's a lot there. I think he's running, he way stretches defences. He gets lots of chances and he hasn't taken enough. I just think if there's a bit more improvement in him, that maybe that could be a big difference in Chelsea's season. So, yeah, I want to go one more with him.
Does that mean then it's the end for Christopher Nkunku?
Oh, definitely.
Right.
And Nkunku's been a huge disappointment. You know, the player they got from the Bundesliga and just, you know, and a talent. I don't deny he's a hell of a talent. He's just never got going at Chelsea.
Yeah. Okay. We had injuries as well.
Yeah, had injuries, but he's a technical player that doesn't really quite fit in. Chelsea looking for that dynamic, and so obviously Neto's come in since then. I just think he's lost his way completely, and I just think it hasn't worked.
Okay. Obviously, we've been discussing what happened with the Lionesses in their first game of this year's Euros as they lost to France last night. It's worth pointing out that manager Sarina Wiegman has only lost 3 of her 27 major tournament games as a manager. So, is that something that's really important to remember in all of this, that you can still lean on the experience of this team, that they know that this is just the 3rd defeat of a major competition?
Well, they've set the bar high, haven't they? So obviously winning the Euros was a big thing. And now they're in a position where they've lost their opening group game, didn't play particularly well. They've also lost a number of players before the tournament started, which is an issue, because although people say, England have moved on since then, there was a lot of below performers in the team. Against the French. The French are a very good side, but it's the first game of the tournament. They have to beat the Netherlands. That's without doubt. Yeah. They've got any chance of progressing, they're probably going to have to win that game. So
yes, and that is on Wednesday, and it'll be live on talkSPORT, certainly. But I agree with you. But like we've said many a time, you can lose a game in the group stage and still get through to knockouts, and then that's when it really... That's when you really have to come to the fore, obviously. Quick couple of messages that have just come in of late that I want to get to. Silly fines. I work for a coach operator. When they introduced the £5 drop-off charge at Heathrow...
that's an annoying one.
Frustrating. But certain vehicles were exempt, like the car, the coach that he was operating, but got a fine for dropping off in a minibus, appealed, and got a reply upholding, saying being exempt wasn't a good enough reason.
Well, what does the word exempt mean then?
I don't know.
How can you be exempt and then that doesn't count?
I don't know.
Sorry.
It's ridiculous. I'm going to try and read this one, Laura from Bournemouth. I'm going to read it. Friend got pulled over and fined for having her seatbelt under her boobs, shall we say? Yeah. That's what Laura's written, boobs, rather than across them. That's what big girls do, say Laura. She had a white T-shirt on. Now she has to wear a dark top when driving.
Oh, well, someone's pulled you over because of...
Well, that's what Laura says. Her friend, that happened to Laura's friend. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know.
No, I didn't know that.
I'm trying to... Yeah. I mean, I get it. Comfortable. I get where you're coming from, Laura's friend, but clearly there was an eagle-eyed copper. Anyway, right. That is... We move on very quickly. That is it for today. On the way next, Cass, I'll see you next weekend.
Shut up.
On the way, who knew we were going to end on that? I did. I did that. It's my fault. On the way next, Sunday edition, Sean Custers, Henry Winter.